share the screen here. I guess. Yeah. This. Start listening. Pull this up. All right. Okay. Still pretty early. Let me call the judge. Honey, I had to stop doing these late streams because this is so annoying right about now. Let's see something here. Oh. I could have been watching that. Let's see. Do something else. Late streams because this is so annoying right about now. Okay, you guys can hear me. Good. I had to test. Yeah, I don't like doing the late streams. I'm tired and I just want to decompress. And he be, I don't know. I think he thinks he's going to miss something. If if we do it during the afternoon, which I will prefer, or early evening, I think he gets bored at this time at night, late at night. But for me, I take it down mentally. So, I mean, it's his space anyway. Hi guys on X. Let me go here. Okay. Yeah, and a lot of times people just be sleep. Not sleep, but just doing other stuff. This is just way too late. Let's see. Hi, Miss Angela. Yeah, I had to call him. Like, come on, snap to it. People gotta go to work. People are tired. 8 p.m. Eastern is good. Yes. This 10 o'clock, 9. Actually, no, I want to do it earlier than that. Maybe like 5. It's on a Tuesday. On a Tuesday, I definitely want to do it earlier. Because there are other things that I have to do with my time. Every time my dog hear paper rattling or a bag, he think it's snack. No, it's a snack for me, but not for him. Yeah. So I'm like, honey, And then too, I don't like to have people sitting there waiting. I don't like that. To me, that is very rude. Very rude. Like, you don't need a grand interest. Um, okay, that's that. So yeah, and I don't do spaces at all. I don't even hop in other people's spaces as much like I used to. So I'm not going to get a lot of traction if I hold the space. I have to be way more consistent with it. And if he doesn't come on in 2 minutes, honey, I will call it a night. I am not playing. All right, because he's tweeting, he's reposting, and he's not reposting this space. Actually, I think I am going to cancel it. I think I am going to cancel tonight's space. He's reposting. Why are you reposting other people's stuff when I text you the space? All right. Can you please repost the space since you want to be posting everything else? You're muted. I can't hear you. You're muted, Josh. I can't hear you.
All right. I just posted.
Yes, honey, it's late. This is your space. We got to get to it. So, Congressional showdown. It was a lot that happened today, and it's all about Congress. Forget regular TV, forget mainstream media, forget the gossipy tea. But we will not forget what's going on in California with the wildfires. However, how you pronounce his name? Pete Hegseth. Hegseth. You know, he had his confirmation hearing for Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, and the biggest thing was the stupidity from Mace Hirono from Hawaii, who declared that the Supreme Court created the ability to own guns in 2008. She's a United States Senator sworn to uphold the Constitution, and she's completely unaware of the 234-year history of the Second Amendment. That is so dumb.
Well, I wouldn't say she was the dumbest remark or question. Pocahontas, she made a fool of herself.
Well, the whole thing was stuck on stupid. They really needed to shut up. It's like the ignorance portrayed by these people who are supposed to be part of the elite club of 100, the 100 senators that sit for the United States of America for its 50 states. It was embarrassingly stupid.
Mm-hmm. So, and then, so that's one part. And then the second part, honey, I don't think, so these hearings are made for us to watch. I don't think, the House of Representatives, when they have their meetings, um, I don't know if it's live. I don't know, but I'll have to be watching them every day because Jasmine Crocket versus Nancy Mace. Jasmine Crocket likes to start shit, and she does it all the time. But she wants to run behind and fall back on civil rights, white supremacy, racism, but camouflage it with LGBTQ. And Nancy Mace, honey, was not having it. She said, bitch, we could take it outside. We could take it outside and it could be up or whatever you want to do. I'm on Nancy's side here. And apparently this was these transgender in sports bill hearing.
Yeah, it was interesting. All of the Democrats voted for against it except three. One of them voted present but not voting, and two voted for the bill, and every other Democrat voted against it. And it goes to the Senate, which ought to be interesting if somebody in the Senate gets the idea that the American public turned against them amongst a number of specific reasons for their policy with this tranny shit up in sports. So this idiot Akeem, who is the minority leader for the House for the Democrats, he put this absolutely stupid, insane proposition out there that the Republicans are promoting pedophiles because their thing will give doctors a chance to examine young girls to see if they are in fact biological females. So that's an opening for pedophiles. That is absolutely ridiculous. Because the last time I checked with anybody, if you're going to compete in organized sports in public schools, you're going to have to be examined by a doctor anyway to see if you're fit. If you go to the Olympics, they do a full service examination of you, including your DNA and your hormones. So, what in the hell is this goddamn fool talking about trying to flip the script to go there? They're the ones that are for grooming children. It's crazy. I mean, it's just insane. And see, let me explain something about what happens with these hearings. You have these committees that hold these hearings, and the committees come out with reports that go to the whole Senate, and then the whole Senate either moves to adopt the resolution of the committee or to have an independent Senate wide vote on the nominees. So, what you're seeing with the prospective Secretary of Defense is a committee thing. It's going to be submitted to a vote later. This thing on the tranny question in sports has already been discussed at length, and it went to the full House after going through various committees. So it is out there. And the House passed it. Now the bill has to go to the Senate. And if the Republicans are smart, what they will wind up doing is generating controversy and coming up with an alternative so that they will have to reconcile the House and the Senate bills on it, which will put the vote back until after the 20th, when you will have a firm Republican majority in the Senate and the House, and they'll be able to pass it. So there are all kinds of parliamentary manipulations that can be carried on, and see, learning how to do it is something that takes time for the people who get elected to these offices, and some of them that I've seen don't seem to know how to really manipulate this yet. So they aren't fully functional members of House or Senate. But anyway,
Well,
we'll see.
so the floor is open. Anybody want to request to come up to talk about the Senate hearing, whether it's the confirmation or the Jasmine versus Nancy or anything else that's going on? Um, whether it's the California wildfires, it's a lot still coming out with that. A lot of fires are still continuing to happen. So, and it's just is what it's been over 7 days. 7 days in Southern California is up in flames. So it's still open mic. So if you would like to request, please request to come up. I will be shutting this down at midnight. Um, so please don't wait till the last 30 minutes, but shutdown is at midnight. And this is, this is your space judge, but we did start a little bit late. We usually start at 9. But I had to take an
Yeah,
important phone call.
him. So anyway,
Yeah. And please repost this space on X. And if you're listening on YouTube, hi guys.
Hegseth.
Please share on YouTube as well, but repost here on X. And we have a speaker, lead with logic. Hi.
Peace, peace. Can you hear me, Dana?
Yes.
All right, we hear you.
Hey, I appreciate, first and foremost, I appreciate you, Dana and Judge, for allowing me on y'all stage, man. Um, so a few things. Uh, Judge, man, I appreciate you, big dog. I listen to you. I listen to judicial people in legal matters, judges, lawyers, when it comes to legal matters. Because when things happen, people become, armchair lawyers and judges. But nonetheless, quick question. The thing with Jay-Z, Danny, you said we can ask about anything, so I'm assuming everything is fair game. Is that true?
Go for it.
Jay-Z, can you discuss that, big brother? Because that's been a huge, huge thing. We've been seeing in the news. We saw it. They made it an amendment in the Diddy trial. Can you kind of give us some context behind that? Because people,
What
lying.
aspect of it are you interested in?
Um, well, I guess just how legit is it? Because I saw where the young lady, they approved with her ID. She didn't have to identify herself, right? She can remain anonymous. So I was just wondering, man, what could you give us the perspective from a judge's standpoint? What this is all about? That makes sense.
Well, okay, there may be some legitimacy to the claim, but there may not be. There are a number of unscrupulous lawyers around the country who've made a name for themselves, and what they tend to do is they threaten to file actions hoping to extort settlements from the people because what they want for a settlement is just slightly less than it would take to defend against the bogus action. The other thing is that some politically correct states have been opening up statutes of limitations, and you have some very weird things going on. For example, the claims of paternity, where the appeal was denied 11 years ago, but yet somebody's trying to revive it after 11 years, and somebody is 30 some years in their 30s and trying to revive something that your mama couldn't put up and get in motion. And at some point, you just need to say, I've got more important things to resolve in life and I need to move on because fixating on this kind of thing is dysfunctional. That's why we have statute of limitations. It's like in the scheme of things, certain things are more important than other things. So at some point, people need to be able to not have to look over their shoulder anymore and can go on with their business. And if you didn't take some action in a certain given amount of time, you snooze, you lose. It's not that important. Like in the federal system, there is a rule called the minimum amount in controversy. In other words, if the amount of money does not exceed a certain minimum limit, then you can't file in federal court because the case isn't deemed important enough to tie up the federal court system with it. The same thing with statute of limitations. You have on first degree murder, there is no statute of limitations, and in most states, whether the records pertain to a not guilty verdict, an acquittal, a dismissal, or an unsolved case, the records are required to be kept generally for 99 years because homicide and murder is deemed to be so important. But then again, certain other things have statute of limitations of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And sometimes it gets to be ludicrous, and I don't want to insult any women, but in feelings, but it gets kind of ludicrous when you set a 30-year statute of limitations on somebody copped a field when they were 16, 17 years old, and you don't have but a 6-year statute of limitations on voluntary manslaughter. See, it gets a little crazy. uh, it's like what you're doing in Britain, and I don't want to get off the point, but it's a sentencing discrepancy in Great Britain. You have situations where people are convicted of child rape, convicted of it, and they get suspended sentences by operation of British law. But then you turn around and there are people who get 9 months, 18 months, 3 years in the penitentiary for saying something or and literally posting something from England on X, this very venue we're on right now, and they get 18 months in a penitentiary for it. And in England, you have to serve damn near your entire sentence. See, these discrepancies get crazy and they reflect political positions rather than realities when it comes to public peace, dignity, and order. So you have this thing where it is a boutique popular thing in America where if you got a celebrity and there's the slightest way of going after the celebrity, you go make an accusation at him, and that accusation may have some validity, or it may be some mentally ill screwball that is fantasized off of something. And I've actually had cases in my court when I was on the state bench where when we got into them and some analysis was done, some psychiatric evaluations occurred, it developed that the would-be plaintiff is in fact creating a fiction in their mind that they firmly believe in what they say happened couldn't have happened. In one instance, there was somebody that was being accused that fortunately for him was on active duty in the Army, and he was in the turret of an M60 tank over in the Fulda Gap in Germany at the time with no way to get back to the United States to commit the offense. So, I mean, it gets really weird. And then sometimes you have real life situations where there's something to it. So, we have means within the system to work these things out. And there are steps that you have to go through, one step at a time, which the public these days doesn't understand because they expect instant gratification, not with their expectations of the law, but because they have, what is it, the National Enquirer used to say, inquiring minds, and they just want to know because they want the salacious gossip that pertains to it. So let's see what happens. And unfortunately, it is an open channel for abuse today in terms of what happens when you get pop culture lawsuits.
I like that term, pop culture lawsuits. Yeah, because that's exactly what it sounds like was going on today. Anything else you wanted to mention? Lead with logic. Do you want to chime in on the congressional showdown that happened today?
No, I just wanted to know that I was watching. I will say this: I did see where they passed that, or they were trying to pass it. I read where they were removing trans out of competing with people who were born a gender, and I think it's great. I think it's unfair to them sisters, man, and the brothers. I mean, a woman is never going to be able to compete with a man at his full strength and her full strength if they're training like that. I mean, maybe a few could, but by and large, it's no competition. So I'm all for it, and I appreciate you, Judge.
Well,
thank you, sir.
I have a
Appreciate it.
question as far as that. I have a question as far as that trans bill ban or whatever. How did that even become a thing? Like who and how long ago? But who put that to the forefront to say, hey, let transgender be in women's sports, not men's sports, not all sports, but specifically women's sports? When did that become a thing and
If I could
introduced?
say something about that, Tennessee, Kentucky, and some other states filed an action that a federal judge granted this week. And what it was an injunction on the very sweeping change, the 1,500-page executive order that this fool Biden signed trying to modify Title IX to reflect protection for trannies in trying to compete against women in sports. And what he wound up saying was it was so complicated that essentially, even though some of the provisions were innocuous, the whole thing was just an example of the executive, meaning the president, trying to exercise authority that the Constitution did not give him. Title IX was a matter of congressional legislation that was passed into law, signed by a president. It has been in effect for decades, and he does not have the authority on his signature to change the law. It has to go back to the legislative body, to Congress, which has two houses, the House of Representatives and the other chamber is the Senate. And in order to change Title IX, the Senate and the House have to come up with legislation, and it has to be signed by the sitting president as a new statute that either amends, modifies, or repeals the existing statute on Title IX.
Okay. Anybody else want to request to come up and speak about the congressional showdown today or anything else? Because it is still open mic as well. Please do so. We are not going to be up here long. I said I was going to close it down at midnight Eastern Standard Time, so that's in what, an hour and 30 minutes. Um, so tomorrow, Judge Mark Rubio is having his confirmation for Secretary of State. And I'm just like, honey, he is no Colin Powell or Condoleezza Rice. I can't name the others, but however, why did Trump nominate him? I don't think he's qualified.
Who are we talking about? I didn't hear that. I had
Mark
static.
Mark Rubio. Mark Rubio. His confirmation is tomorrow for Secretary of State. I don't think he's qualified for that position.
Why do you say that?
I just don't. He's a senator, okay, out of Florida, but what what kind of international relations does he have? I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And I think because I'm looking at the prior Secretary of States, Colin Powell, and then him. I just don't see
Well,
it.
let me offer this. If the context for this administration is complete change and dismantling of a bureaucracy, perhaps the way to do it is to fill the top slots with people who do not come from that bureaucracy, do not have connections with it, and don't have any friends that they worry about offending who are associated with it, whether that be internationally or otherwise. And then things that are of consideration too is you have to be aware of what's going on. So we don't know what Rubio's experience or knowledge base is when it comes to the interest of foreign entities. We do know that Florida has an extensive international connection because of what it is, so that may give him some clue. He may have been a student of it. He may just be a natural diplomat or statesman. And perhaps what we need is somebody who can firmly and articulately express and present the interest of the United States of America in the foreign field. We do have an advantage in that we come in with a position of extreme power and we don't have to do too much negotiation unless we just choose to be particularly nice to somebody. So there is that.
Well, whatever. But
Well,
all
yeah.
right, we do have another person speaker, Henrietta the Great.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Judge. How are you?
Hello there.
Oh, it's such an honor to meet you and talk to you. But I believe to answer the question about his qualifications, because that did cross my mind, of course, when he was initially nominated. And I looked it up, and I believe he served on a foreign affairs committee in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever he's been working on and established during that time, I guess he seemed like a good choice.
You think so? Okay.
I mean, that's based on the information that I gathered. I was trying to figure it out too. Like Dana, I was trying to figure it out as well. So I think it's a good question.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? Somebody in the YouTube chat, Marcia, she made a good point. What did Hillary
Mhm.
Clinton have? And I forgot. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. And that
Yeah.
whole Benghazi and the email debacle, but was
Hmm.
she even qualified?
She was a senator and
A
not
first
really.
lady. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, but these are lifetime politicians. So
Hmm.
when you said judge, it's sometimes it's better to have somebody who's on the outside, but technically they're not, because you talk about longtime politicians. Some, Colin Powell, he wasn't a politician, he was military.
Brilliant. Brilliant man.
So yeah, I don't know. I just
Powell was a brilliant man. I met him
Mhm.
2 times. One time it was 1972. I was doing a thing at a DC think tank, and somebody that I knew at the time invited me to a promotion party that her brother, who was a colonel in the U.S. Army, was hosting. And the guest of honor was Colin Powell, who had just been promoted to lieutenant colonel. So I met him then back in 1972. And then I met him again close on to 2000 out in Los Angeles at a function. He and his wife were there, and he was a retired 4-star general by then, a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And we sat at a table together for a couple of hours and had a long conversation. And by the way, he can throw down on a dance floor, he and his wife. They could do all the latest dances and do them well. So he is a decorated and purple hearted veteran that did several tours in Nam. And he's what I would classify as a truly dangerous man, but he's also a good guy, or was a good, well, he's dead now, but he was a good
yeah,
guy.
he died in 2021, 84, from Harlem. Oh wow. So yeah, go ahead, Henrietta.
If I may ask one question about the congressional showdown today, Judge, do you would that qualify as a threat? The invitation to take it outside?
There is a blanket immunity, anything said on the congressional or Senate floor.
Hmm.
Can't go after somebody. And it's within the tradition. They've had sword fights on the floor of Congress, either in the House or the Senate, both actually. They've had fist fights over the years, and they've even had a gunfight or two that developed from the Senate. Duel.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's nothing new. Passions can
Hmm.
Well,
ramp up.
let me say this, because I saw them in that little weak mail talking about some. Oh, she's trying to incite violence and take it outside. No, it doesn't mean I want to harm you. That's just mean
Hmm.
let's just take it from where we're at in here, so we could go somewhere else and just be more blunt. Now,
I thought that.
right. So for that guidance, and they always do that. And it's like, no, Nancy, check Jasmine, because Jasmine has a history of trying to check everybody else and want to hide
Mhm.
behind civil rights and white supremacy. But no, but you ran up to the right one today. And when she said that you want to sit up here and allow or promote transgender and women's sports, but you can't sit up here and support women such as myself who have been sexually violated. So yeah,
Hmm.
and she was,
Yeah.
and I don't think Jasmine probably wasn't calling her a child, but that is like when she say child, it is
Yeah.
slang, but
Hmm.
again, Jasmine always kind of take it there with the little sassiness. And Nancy bit all the way back. Like, bitch, back up. And
Well,
because I know you're directing that towards me, and I'm not the one. Especially
well,
when, and she did say, what did she say? Men with dicks. Didn't she say?
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Legally, we can take it outside. That's not an imminent threat because it's not, let's get it on right here. You see, there's conditioned precedent, step outside.
Well, the
So,
head of the Congressional or whatever committee that was, he said, no, we're not going to put it on record that she was trying to
well, yeah,
incite
you
violence.
can strike remarks from the record. See, most of what you hear when they have these committee meetings is for the congressional record, but they have several days to correct the record and amend what they said so what gets printed and their constituents can get a copy of through the government printing office reflects what they intended to say, not necessarily what they actually said. But she says we can take it outside. Now, if the other party said, okay, let's go, then that's another thing. You start getting into the territory of mutual combat. But when you say, let's take it outside, you're not saying, I'm going to bust you in your mouth right now. You're saying there's a condition precedent. If you want to accept it as a mutual combat, we'll go from there. And it becomes a matter of disturbing the peace. See, if you want to put it like that.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're
Thank
quite
you.
welcome. That was a
I'm
very
honored to
interesting
talk to
question.
you.
I enjoyed
Thank
the
you.
question. It took me back to law school 50 something years ago.
Wow. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Thank
You
you.
Thank you.
too.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you.
And you know what? And then too, I'm glad that we are having these discussions because I think even younger people should be more intrigued and interested to watch C-SPAN and watch these congressional hearings on bills and stuff like that. Mike, can you put your mute button on for a second? I gotta go to El Hotep and then I'm gonna come to you. Go ahead, El Hotep, and then Mike.
Short.
Oh, we can't hear you, Al
Uh,
Hotep.
now can you hear me?
A little bit better. Say something else.
Hold on, real quick. Let me change these
I
headphones
think
real
you
quick.
always have like these audio issues.
I think it's because I'm at work.
Oh, that's probably why.
Better now.
Don't let the
No, it's actually worse now.
I'm gonna try and then come back.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Judge, really appreciate you doing this. I want to go back to Marco Rubio just for a sec. I remember hearing Mike Bentz talk about Marco Rubio's background, and he was on the Foreign Relations Committee, a ranking member, and I looked it up, and it appears that Marco Rubio is a board member of the IRI, which is the International Republican Institute that the CIA has stood up back in the late Reagan days, I believe. So apparently he's got connections, or at least got backing from the CIA, from, I guess, maybe the deep state or whatever they would call that. I think Benz calls that the blob. But anyway, I wanted to put that out there.
That's a good perspective. I appreciate that. Enlighten me. Um, El Hotep. Unmute. We don't hear anything.
going once, going twice.
See, a lot of companies they put something in the atmosphere to make it difficult for people to go online or social media, because people me do they have a little downtime at work. So sometimes they may have like a weak Wi-Fi intentionally. Um so that's their way of trying to get more productivity out the employees. But I'm pro employees, not the employer or these big corporations. But yeah, that's probably why he's having not so good audio. But yeah, so did you hear what Mike said about Mark Rubio and the CIA?
I had a little difficulty. I was getting that buzz out of the way you were talking about.
So did you hear what Mike said about the can you say what you said again, Mike? You can unmute. You're muted. I don't it can Mike even hear me?
Well, what did he say? Just
He
give
said
me the.
something about Mark Rubio is on he was on some Republican committee that has to do with something with the CIA, some type of I don't know, something related to that.
Well, look, let me explain what the CIA was. It was created in 1947, and what the thing is, Central Intelligence Agency. Its purpose, as specified in the legislation that created it, was to gather information from around the world, synthesize it, and present it in the form of briefings to the President of the United States so he could properly manage his position as Commander in Chief of the military and Chief Diplomatic Officer of the country. That was the purpose. They found that the people that they were bringing into the CIA, who were Ivy Leaguers, in other words, boule rich kids who had traveled in Europe and were familiar with the culture, were not those people who were streetwise. So what happens is they had a singular ineptitude when it came to coming up with information. So what they tried to do is switch over and cause things rather than discover things. So they wound up spending a lot of money for some bogus information for the first 10 years of their existence. They had some real creepy guys that were running things, and it took them a bit to settle down. So by default, they became an agency that started dealing with the James Bond type stuff that British MI6 handles. They have an MI5 for internal affairs in Britain and an MI6 that deals with external intelligence and threat. We have.
Wait 1 second. I want to check El Hotep's mic. Can you say something, El Hotep, so I can make sure your audio is okay?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
We hear you.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Well,
Okay.
I'll finish up. The CIA just exceeded its mandate. That's like, why does the Secret Service guard the president? Well, the Secret Service was created by Abraham Lincoln in 1863 to deal with Confederate counterfeiting efforts. So the Secret Service's charter was to handle counterfeiting. It just developed that it was the only operative federal police agency, so it got assigned the task of guarding the president. That's just expediency. So that's how the CIA wound up getting a lot of its tasks. It just happened to be the only agency that was set up to deal with foreign affairs outside of the military intelligence network, which Army had an intelligence thing. The U.S. Navy had a very big intelligence crew, and everything sort of morphed into what they have, and now they have National Defense Intelligence Agency, and they all cooperate within the intelligence community. They're not coordinated, but it is what it is. Now, if that answers the question, gets close to it.
All right, go ahead, El Hotep.
All right. Hey, how's everybody going?
Okay.
I did want to make a statement on the mayor and on what's going on in Los Angeles with the fires and stuff like that. I don't know if anybody told you because I know you guys were discussing it yesterday. Why the mayor was in Ghana? She was actually in Ghana for the president's inauguration, right? So That's why she was there. She was there for the presidential inauguration. One thing I think that I don't know if anybody talked about it yet or anything or discussed it in detail is that $17 million budget cut and the equipment that was or that should have been used to fight the fires that wasn't necessarily available to the firefighters. Stuff like oxygen tanks and stuff like that. When you have oxygen tanks and stuff like that that aren't operating and that aren't effective in full capacity, it puts the firefighters at a disadvantage. Um, so I think it's bigger than the DEI stuff. I think it's unfortunate that the budget cuts had happened. What I do find interesting is where they had cut the fire department's budget, they had increased the police department's budget. So it's just poor management by the city council, the city mayor, and the um, other city officials, even with the fire department. It's just an unfortunate thing. I was in California in July, and I mean Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could have seen this. It's Judge. I'm gonna give you an example. You go anywhere by Mulholland Drive, the Getty Center, and the I'm gonna probably mess up the name, but the Scarborough Center. It's all just bone dry. It was just poor management by the city, the state, and also the federal government. It's not just the city's problem. It's a wide range of issues. So I just think that people should stop just saying it's a DEI issue and just look at the facts.
Well, I used to have a place directly across from the Getty Center on the other side of the 405, and I know what it looks like up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it within the last 18 months or so when I've been out to Los Angeles for business. But I tell you what, the really sad thing is a number of people got notices in the week, 2 weeks, month preceding this fire from major insurance agencies that their policies, fire insurance policies, were being canceled. And somebody was informing me, I haven't looked at the paperwork to verify it, but they were advising that one of the stated reasons in the letter that they got from their insurance company was that the government of California had drained all of these reservoirs of their water. So, in the opinion of the insurance company in question, this would diminish the ability to fight fires, and these people were in a high fire probability area. So they were canceling the insurance policy. So people are left with no policy to replace their burnt down homes, which is a real live mess. And Newsom was on the news quite a few times over the last year and a half, practically boasting of the money he was saving California by draining these reservoirs into the ocean to save the expense on keeping the water purified. And also, there was a problem that he was boasting that he was being environmentally sound because there was a little smelt type fish that's about an inch long that he was saving, inch and a half, 2 inches long, that he was saving by cutting down on pumping water into these reservoirs. Also, the fire breaks were allowed to grow over because there was a rare mouse-like rodent that was endangered. Then there is another thing, and this is an update on what I have been investigating. There was a security entity, several actually, and they were providing security for the homes in the areas in question. And one of the problems they have is that occasionally the power net will go down. And they like to keep on top of that because when the net goes down and there's a loss of power in the area, a power outage, their customer security systems go to batteries, which have a finite charge. So they like to keep on top of it in case they have to replace the batteries. So they noted that in the hour preceding the outbreak of the conflagration in the 3 areas where it started, there was a severe number of faults that were indicated in the power grid, which was just unprecedented in their monitoring it. So what gets me is, why didn't the power company, which is one of the largest in America, have the same equipment to monitor their own faults in their own system that should have tipped somebody off? Why doesn't one of the largest fire departments in the United States have the same system that the security company had, so they can monitor the faults? Because there have been some instances in the last few years where these fires were started by places where sparks or current from shorted out junctions and parts of the system caused fires. Now, as many fires as they have had, it would strike anybody with common sense that you would do some intense studying to determine where you're likely to have a fire and take precautions so that if it happens, you're ready to go for it. But we had an idiot running the utility company out in Los Angeles who gets paid a $750,000 a year salary without bonuses. And she wasn't prepared. It is one of the largest utility companies in the country. You have a fire chief who says her principal thing is to deal with DEI hiring, diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically to ensure that the somewhat neglected LGBTQIA plus cult segment is represented. And then you have her assistant chief who says that's her motive and that's her chief focus too. And she even made a joke out of it. She said, it doesn't make any difference if I can't carry a grown man out of a burning building or down a ladder, because if he's stuck in that position, that's his fault anyway, which is absolutely ridiculous. So she's so fat and out of shape, she couldn't run 25 yards. And the thing about it, it is so bad, is firemen have a lot of free time when they are in the station house after they've cleaned up all of the equipment, and they pump iron incessantly. So these guys are some of the fittest of the fit, buffed out and strong as oxes. And now you got 2 chiefs that look like they're fat cows that can't get to the end of the doggone driveway at the fire station, and talk stuff about it's not their problem. If somebody can't be carried out, they shouldn't have put themselves in that position. Now, that's where you are right now with Los Angeles. You have a real live mess. And then they've got 10 or 12 people that are under arrest for arson. And whether that's just a coincidence or opportunism, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, about 12 years ago on my show, no, 15 years ago on my show, I was doing arbitration. I had a plaintiff, 2 plaintiffs, and they were complaining about they had had severe property damage because some clown claimed to have a barbecue brazier that he put in the back of his pickup truck, and he was driving off with it, and unbeknownst to him, embers were setting fire to the property. Well, when I read the complaint, something about it struck me as wrong, so I had some of the staff check this out. And what I discovered led to some questions during the arbitration proceeding, and it developed that the defendant worked with some land developers, and they had been trying to buy up all of this property for future development. So there were a series of fires, suspicious fires, that could be traced back to them if you knew what I's to dot and T's to cross and what dots to connect up with. And when I finished up with the case and ruled for the plaintiffs and the liability of the defendants, a fire marshal who had been in the audience came up to talk with me. I didn't know it was there, and we spoke about it. And a few months later, I got a letter from I think it was the California Association of Fire Chiefs and Fire Marshals, and they thanked me for discovering what seemed to have been a plan by these developers to create fire situations so they could get the property. So they said they had 12 to 15 people they want to submit for indictment purposes for especially aggravated arson, something along those lines. So I've seen it where there's actually been a plot going on for this kind of thing. But I mean, all of this may have something to do with it. Anyway,
yeah, you're
what it
right.
is.
I'm like, I'll give you a prime example. Then I'm not gonna take too much of your time. Like the Sepulveda Dam or the Sepulveda Basin, which used to be full or somewhat halfway full, is completely bone dry. And I'm pretty sure that if that reservoir was full, they could have used that to fight that fire. If you have
It wasn't just one reservoir, it was quite a
yeah,
few.
I'm just saying that the
It
Sepulveda,
wasn't just
because
one.
that's the most that's what well, I'm not sure if that's the closest, but that's the one that I'm pretty much more familiar with because it's one of the main ones in the San Fernando Valley, right? So I mean, the places like that, you could have used that to fight that fire. I spoke to someone who was working at the city or at the county's clerk office, and they told me things like having oxygen tanks that aren't working at full capacity. That's not working to your advantage also. So if you have 800 oxygen tanks, but only 400 to 300 are working at full capacity, there's no way in hell a firefighter can put out a fire, even arson investigators. So that $17 million budget cut, it definitely put thorn on the side of the fire department, the city, and other city officials. So I think the city manager, the city council, and the mayor ultimately will have to answer to that, because that 17 million, like I said, it did not help. And city officials have complaints about that. And it just so happened that this fire, it took this fire to bring attention to this. Um, so I'm doubtful that the voters in Los Angeles are going to take this into consideration. Like I've talked to some of my cousins, and they said they're not even bringing that up and topic of discussion. They're more concerned with the fact that the fires are a problem, which I can understand. But like I said again, that $17 million budget cut was a direct cause of the lack of response that we've seen from the first responders.
Okay, where'd the money go to deal with their DEI and special programs? Now, the other thing that is absolutely ridiculous, fire stations deal with emergencies, right? Yeah, right. Okay, now, you would think that a fire station had emergency generators that could kick in case they lost power from the grid, right? Well, they don't. So here's a fire station right in the middle of everything. Everything went out when the power went out. So guess what happens? Elon Musk donates 20 of those cyber trucks that have a huge battery capacity to provide the emergency power for the fire station right in the midst of all of the hot action, because the city of Los Angeles allowed this station to operate without emergency backup. That's ridiculous. Whoever is responsible should be summarily fired for incompetence.
Um, anybody want to request to come up? Please do so. Um, I think I'm missing. I'm missing mentioning something, and I can't really think of. It's I don't know. Is something else? Is something else going on
Yeah.
outside of congressional? Oh, this is what I wanted to bring up. Pam Bundy, her confirmation starts tomorrow as well for Attorney General. Hers is Wednesdays and Thursday. So I guess they're going to have 2 to 3 confirmations going on at the same time. But I guess I'm assuming Marco Rubio is the most popular one for tomorrow. But either way, Pam Bundy, Judge, you did say you did have a problem that of her being nominated for Attorney General because she is a lifelong, well, so far in her career, prosecutor.
I do not trust lifetime prosecutors. It's okay to be a prosecutor, even for an extended period of time, but before you get considered from anything else, you need to go deal with the real world on the other side. There is something sick that happens to somebody that is only on one side, the prosecutorial side, and considering what the Attorney General is doing, which is running the Department of Justice, you run into this problem because every now and then it happens, Your Honor, in the interest of justice, the state requests that the charges against the defendant be dismissed. You see, being over the Department of Justice means justice is ensured by that department, which sometimes means prosecution of offenders, and sometimes it means protection of people, including protection of those who are wrongfully prosecuted. So if you have somebody who is a career prosecutor, the problem is that they aren't used to that other side, and all they think about is prosecute, prosecute, win, win, win. And you get a profile which is, I'm seeing, is matched with this person has been trying to prove something in her career. And what she's trying to prove is not the administration of justice. It strikes me as the proof of self-worth by accomplishing the perceived ends of the office, which is to successfully prosecute people. And I'd like to see somebody totally disconnected with the prosecutor's office who has some facility with criminal law, who may have been a prosecutor at some point of his career, but who comes in laterally without any connection to the process so that he or she can make sure that justice is done rather than the aims of the bureaucracy known as the Department of Justice gets done, and that also includes things like the FBI, which is under the Department of Justice. So we've got a big to do about who's going to be the director of the FBI, but the director is under the Attorney General of the United States, who runs the Department of Justice under the president. So I have that problem. But I mean, I'm not the one in charge or with the discretion, so it's not my business other than being a citizen and making First Amendment commentary.
Real quick, so what are some qualifications that American people should be concerned that the Attorney General should have when for that position? You know, what are qualifications we should look for the Attorney General position? And can you just give a brief description of exactly what does Attorney General, what they do and what that job description is?
Okay, to fill it, you need somebody who is learned and experienced in law and the practice thereof and wise in the ways of the world. He needs to be somebody that's demonstrated fairness and impartiality and objectivity and common sense, because the prosecutors have, under the United States law, common law, and statutory law, just about everywhere, what is essentially unlimited prosecutorial discretion in deciding who gets prosecuted or not prosecuted. And often that has been expressed by what we now call lawfare over the last 4 years, and we've seen how awful that is. So what we need is not somebody who is necessarily coming from one side of the aisle or the other when it comes to prosecutor or defense lawyer, but hopefully somebody who has just been experienced in the law and knows humanity so that that person can deal with his or her obligations. Now, the Department of Justice is in charge of handling the legal business of the United States. When there's a lawsuit that involves the United States as a defendant, he is in charge of its defense. When there is an issue that requires that the United States take a defendant into court civilly, he's in charge of handling that lawsuit. When there is a situation where somebody has allegedly committed a criminal act, technically the attorney general's in charge of the prosecution. When there is a situation where there is an abuse of law, like what used to happen down in the South when we still had Jim Crow and the Klan running stuff down there, where Byrd, former U.S. Senator, was Grand Dragon for the Klan, and Eastland and Stennis, who helped Biden come up with some of the abominations in American federal criminal law 45 years ago. Yes, you needed the Department of Justice to ensure that there were no inequities and violations of American law and the Constitution down there. They protected people as well as prosecuted people. They are charged with handling the legal business of the United States of America. So that's what they do. So that person doesn't need to necessarily be a career prosecutor. It needs to be somebody who is an adept in handling the matters of a large scale client who also happens to be a people client. So they can deal with civil and criminal actions, defense and prosecution or promotion as the circumstances dictate.
Well, Jeff Sessions, that was the attorney general that Trump nominated when he was first elected back in 2016. And it was controversy because I think it was they were saying something, I think about something with racism, with just, it was something with Jeff Sessions, but he ended up being confirmed, but he ended up resigning a year later, and Wim Barr came in, right? Talk about a connection. And then what we find out, what, last month or weeks ago, um, Wim Barr was behind Fannie Willis of the Georgia election RICO case to get Trump convicted. So maybe Jeff Sessions was the right person in the beginning, but either way, politics is so dirty. Um,
Let me say this. When he first got
who?
in,
Which one? Okay.
Trump, in 2016, I said he's got a problem because he's not really a Republican as far as the old GOP is concerned. But what I think he's going to do is give the Republican Party their wish list, not necessarily who he wants, but who he thinks they want. And during the course of his term, he's going to weed those out who are unacceptable. And in his second term, he's going to have a clear shot at a staff that is firmly on his side rather than just going along to get along with the Republican Party. And he was doing that, but the election was stolen and he didn't prevail in 2020. So now it's 2025 and he has prevailed and he's putting people in that he wants since he now is the Republican Party, and he doesn't have to accommodate the rhinos or anybody else who have these fantasies that they want pushed that just don't have what is necessary for the job.
Okay. I get that because he knows, because he came in, he was even he was never even a politician. So, and then two, and I agree with that. He knows what to look for. He knows who's really supporting him. He knows the way of the game. I think the attorney general, I think that was his setup. Jeff Sessions, I think that was probably a better. Jeff Sessions would have been loyal to Trump, but it was a lot of backstabbing that Trump probably wasn't aware of during the first term. And I guess Republicans, Democrats, or whoever the powers that be made it happen so that Jeff Sessions had no choice but to resign because they wanted to intentionally plant William Barr in that position to eventually lock Trump up, setting the stage up for 2020. So yeah, when you talk about the game of chess, however, just going back to the AG thing, Jeff Sessions was a lifetime prosecutor as well. So, do you think presidents feel comfortable with prosecutors?
Well, Trump isn't exactly a person that has been founded in the practice of law. He's a businessman. He's hired lawyers, but he's never had to be in a courtroom except as a party to some action, and I'm sure the experience is not pleasant. But actually, I just don't like the idea of having somebody that spent a career trying to prove a point to show that they're a badass prosecutor. I don't like that.
Um,
Had to sit there in a courtroom. I got elected to 2 8-year terms, and there was a bunch before that as both a defense lawyer and a prosecutor. I was the first black prosecutor for the city of Memphis almost 50 years ago. And I've seen how stuff can miscarry, and I've seen what happens when you have a good prosecutor who can deliver justice on both sides. And I've seen when you've got a real son of a bitch or a bitch in there who is trying to prove a point, and you get the worst miscarriages of justice. And if you don't have somebody in there saying, oh, hell no, but not necessarily saying it on the record directly, but keeping things straight, you can get a lot of miscarriages of justice. A
Eric
lot.
Holder, he was not a lifetime prosecutor. He was actually
No,
he was a judge, and then he.
he was a wimp. I met the man. He was a
What do
wimp.
you mean he was a wimp? In
A
what
wimp.
capacity? I know. And
WIMP.
what do you give me an example? Like why did you
Go along to get
oh
along. House Negro
oh
type. He wasn't going to take a stand on anything. He'd always take the moderate thing, not necessarily the neutral moderate thing, but whatever it was that would not cause any rocking of the boat. And sometimes, as a jurist, prosecutor, or defense lawyer, or civil trial lawyer, or plaintiff's lawyer, you have to rock the damn boat to keep the legal system operating effectively.
and Loretta Lynch, she was I don't know, was she the first woman attorney general?
I don't know. I wasn't impressed by her. She was too interested in secretly promoting
Oh,
LGBTQIA
Loretta
cult
Lynch,
policy.
she was the one that came in after Eric Holder, the black woman.
Well, I don't know. She didn't do much for anybody except that
What do you
rainbow
mean do
cult.
much? What did I don't think she did anything for them.
Oh, I think she did. A lot of what they pushed out there was nominally for the black community, but when you read what they had and you got past the caption and what got enforced, didn't have much to do for ordinary, normal folk of whatever their persuasion happened to be.
Oh,
And
you know
before
what?
that,
Let me read this. Yeah, that's funny. You passed the caption. That is true. Okay, so here it is. Um, wait. What is this? Okay. In response to the Orlando nightclub shooting, Lynch made multiple appearances on television news. highlighted an ongoing FBI investigation. So that Orlando club shooting was considered an LGBTQ hate crime or a hate crime against their community. Um, and
Yeah, and the real bad one was there under Clinton.
Clinton emails. She was investigating the emails.
No, but I'm talking about Clinton. Didn't Clinton have a female for attorney
Which
general?
Clinton? You mean Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton.
Oh, let me check.
She was from Florida.
Um, who is this? Oh, wait, 1 second. Uh, Mukase. No, who is this? Um, no, George Bush. Look, I gotta go all the way back.
Was it under George? It wasn't
Janet.
under
Oh,
Bush.
Janet Reno.
Janet Reno.
Yeah. What's? Oh, yeah. You know what? Cause she reminds me.
She was admitted a lesbian. She admitted to being one.
Yeah.
And she pushed the hell out of the rainbow card. That's good politics for them. I mean, it's admirable manipulation of the American system. I mean, it's only to be emulated is if you want something done, see how they did it.
Right.
But that's who it was, Janet Reno.
Okay. So, guys, listen, if y'all want to come up, talk about congressional showdowns, what happened today, what's going to be happening moving forward, or anything else, please do so now because we're going to be shutting it down soon. Um, should we be should people make a tiff out of I don't think there's no black person that Trump nominated except for one black guy for the housing committee. Does it matter?
Well, he isn't through yet. There are judgeships, there are U.S. attorneys for various districts. So let's see what happens.
Oh, El Hotep, you want to say something? God.
No, I'll wait till you and the judge finish.
Oh, no.
I
We
just
were
I
just
mean, I'm
talking. Go ahead.
finished. Just go
Okay, I
ahead.
just wanted to
I'm
go
just
on back
filling in.
off of the fire stuff. I get what you're saying, Judge. I necessarily want to trust Elon Musk, and I did want to ask you this question: how much of land seizure do you think this, or land grab, do you think these fires have to do with anything? I was talking to some people in Altadena, and they've came up with this idea that since there's a significant black population in Altadena and Pasadena, that there's this conspiracy to grab a significant amount of homes and land all through the Palisades up into Altadena, and they pointed out some things that were quite interesting. The Olympics is coming up. You have these smart cities and these 15-minute cities that they want to develop. So it's a lot of stuff that's been going around with the reason of why these fires have just been going out of control. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that just because a lot of the people I've been talking to from Altadena and Pasadena have been saying that that's a major concern of theirs, that they do want to grab these homes that black people have been living in for 30 and 40 and 50 plus years.
That's what they did after Hurricane Katrina. Their scam was there was nothing anybody contrived to get Katrina going. But I'd been on a tour down there for my show several years before Katrina. And what they were saying was that um, if there is a force 5 storm, there is going to be a huge problem with billions of dollars in damages because they need to raise the levees another 8 or 9 feet. And I do know this from my contacts with the Navy. You had the U.S. Navy turned around some transport ships who had gotten out in the Atlantic, and they had these huge styrofoam blocks that were weighted at the bottom, and they were going to build breakwaters over there in the Middle East, and that mess was going on at the time. And they turned them around. They had the 101st Airborne on standby. This is what the Pentagon did. And they were waiting the go signal from Bush, and the Navy was waiting the go signal from Bush to put these things down as emergency levees to block the effects of Hurricane Katrina. And they never did get the go ahead. And what wound up happening was the predicted disaster. Now, after the disaster occurred, what went on was they offered these low cost reconstruction loans, and I took the position in some discussions with people that instead of taking the loans, the people should have sold their property directly and they could have gotten premium prices for them. But they took these government subsidized reconstruction loans, and the problem is they were being left in a situation where they could not generate the income necessary to repay the loans. So what wound up happening was the people that extended the loans wound up getting the properties that the loans were to repair or restore at dirt cheap prices, and they lost everything. And since you had this storm damage, they were no longer held to this ancient facade rule that they have in New Orleans, where you can't change the facade even if it's 300 years old. And it gets kind of decrepit when you're trying to upgrade stuff. So they got all this property that was gradable for dirt cheap prices, and a lot of people lost all of the interest that they had in these properties that otherwise would have generated fortunes for them. That's what I call opportunism, and it sort of goes along with the philosophy of never let a good disaster go to waste.
Can I?
Some people are
I
into
want to
that.
say
Now,
something to
go
that.
ahead.
And that's
That,
a real quick, Al, hold up, because when you said that
okay.
FIFA is coming to the Americas next year, and LA Stadium is hosting, and the Olympics is going to be hosted by the LA. So they knew what they were doing. Um, I was about to say something else. An FY, we can't do it this late anymore because my brain is like freezing up. I was making connecting the dots. Um, so yeah, so you know you have these big sporting events coming. Oh, this is what it was. Jeez. Um, so with FIFA, with the Olympics, how many miles of damaged homes and waterfronts and just neighborhoods destroyed? Okay, you're gonna build, right? You need workers. Do we have enough workers? They're gonna say no. We need to open up the border, or the people that's already here in California illegally, they need to stay because they need to help build the houses. Do you get where I'm going with this? And I'll swing it back to you, Al Hotep, as well. You just
Well, let me say this. One of the problems with California right now is property values are extremely elevated. A home that would cost in some of the major urban areas of the United States with identical lot footage, identical housing on the lot or improvements, that would list from say 600,000 to maybe 1,000,010. Those same houses in the Los Angeles area would start at 2.5 million and work up quickly from there. So when you have this distressed property, it's all about location. You can always build on the property or the lots if you get the lots. So it's an opportunistic situation that allows people to acquire extremely expensive homes, a lot of which are up there in an area where the homes start at 2.5, 3, $4 million and go up quickly from there, and they aren't that big. Now, the thing about Altadena, which I'm familiar with, I grew up in Los Angeles. It does have a big minority community. they live in a situation where they have prime property that they're holding, and they might have acquired it years ago when the property values weren't nearly as high as they are now, but they aren't selling. So if you burn them out, they will have to dispose of the property because they cannot afford the mortgages that would be necessary to rebuild. And a lot of them have some really screwed up situations with property, well, excuse me, fire coverage due to some of the things that have happened with the draining of the reservoir, and also what the insurance companies have been doing because they want to divest themselves of the liabilities that are getting worse and worse every year. So likely as not, you've got a situation with whatever the causality is not to be wasted as an opportunity. And there are these properties that otherwise would have required extensive effort at gentrification to acquire, now are wide open because of damages due to the wildfires, however they started.
Real quick, just if I could ask you, what legal action do these residents or can they take? Because I was reading a report where the insurance companies were only going to cover $3 million of the damages, and these fires exceed well over more than $3 million. So, what legal action could they take? And Dana, you said
Well,
something that was very interesting because I was talking to a friend that worked for the DWP. That's an electric company out in California. And he had said that these fires have already created 1,000 new jobs. So I don't know who's going to benefit from these jobs, but that's an interesting thing that you said because he did tell me today that there's already been 1,000 new jobs created because of these fires. So I find that interesting. But I just did want to ask you that, Judge. What legal steps?
okay, here's what happens. Let's say you have a $4.5 million property and your insurance company is only going to cover 3 million of it. Well, what winds up happening is before you can get your property to move back in, you have to have another 1.5 million. Where do you get it? Well, maybe you had a pretty decent income, but still, what the usual thing is that on a 30-year mortgage, which is what you would have to do, a secondary mortgage in order to rebuild, since you still have 1.5 million left, that's going to considerably ramp up your mortgage payments, which you might not be able to meet. Usually what happens is if it works on this, if your yearly income equals 20% of the total price of the home, they'll give you a 30-year mortgage. Now, right now, the fixed interest rate ranges from about 7.2% if you're doing good up to a close to 8.5%, sometimes up as high as 9.2%, which is a hell of a mess trying to break into that. So if you get a second mortgage, it's going to be at a very high interest rate on a fixed basis. Maybe you might do better by gambling and taking a variable rate mortgage, which you might be able to negotiate down to a fixed mortgage in 4, 5, 6 years, depending upon what happens with the Trump administration. So they are stuck. And that 3 million isn't going to be, if your property is not more than 3 million, don't worry about it. We'll pay it off. The way I understand it, and I may be wrong about it, is that it's going to be a percentage of what your costs are going to be to restore yourself up to a maximum of $3 million. So I've owned homes worth more than $3 million.
I don't know. Oh, El Hotep dropped down. Well, it probably was a connection because I know he is at work. Honestly, that the whole LA wildfires, I think it was intentional, and then I think that it made it easy for Mother Nature to come in and do what she do, because even I looked at a quick 4-minute clip of Grant Cardone. He had a house on Malibu, and he was saying that, you know, why would you allow people to build homes or have these homes with this old timber and you have all these electrical lines everywhere going across people's homes, and we are surrounded around, what do you call it, the woods or the mountains, wherever the hell y'all at, and it's dry. And so if something happens, so as far as electricity and something catch on fire, it's you get what you get in wildfire, whatever. And maybe that's why too there are a lot of people are suing the electrical company out there, because now they're saying that some of these fires started electrically as well. And then you have some arsonists. So all this devastation, you have FIFA coming next year, you have the Olympics, and you have prime real estate location. And then you're going to need people to build. So it's like an ecosystem of corruption, and only the people at the top is going to be feeding off it. That's going to benefit. It's a mess. And I think it was designed to be a mess so that people could steal money or allocate money towards their business, have a reason to keep illegals in this country. It's a mess. It's an intentional mess. I'm trying to think of a catchphrase that's better than that though.
Can I add something
Yeah.
about the
Sure, go ahead.
homeowners insurance and the loss? I am a former, I grew up in California in West Los Angeles, and we had a house on Fisk Street in Pacific Palisades. It was right off Sunset, and my father has sold it, but he told me it burned to the ground. So he's moved up north on the coast, so he's okay. But I was a California insurance broker, so I can explain about how the homeowners policies work. And most people, there's the dwelling fire policy is the basic, and that's what people get through the state when they live in areas like Mulholland where the winds kick up. And so the insurers pulled out of there years ago, and those people would have to get the insurance through the state of California, and that's just like a dwelling fire basic kind of policy. But most of us, right, we get our homeowners insurance through State Farm or, Allstate, or if you're in California, the California Automobile Association has policies if you're a veteran and you're fortunate enough to get it through. What was the name of that great company? You had to be a veteran. Anyway, there's some, and then there's Chubb, a company through a broker called Chubb, for example, and they would insure like these very expensive homes and things like that with a lot of scheduled personal property, a lot of jewelry, all that kind of stuff, art. They pay a fortune for their insurance as it is. So the rates are going up. They have been going up in California, but here's the way it generally goes. Most people get what's called an HO-3 policy, a homeowner's 3. And these are personal lines policies, right? It's not commercial, it's personal lines. So they come with a certain amount of homeowners coverage for the dwelling, then 10% of that is for appurtenant or separate structures that are not attached to the dwelling, like a garage or a she shed or, whatever the deal may be. And then you have for personal property, it's like 70% usually of the dwelling and things like that, but there's limitations on the personal property. They'll give you so much. These things are all already set up. So much for jewelry if you happen to lose your ring or away from home or things like that, so you don't have to schedule it. But these are very limited, like maybe $2,500, something like that. So you don't really have, the full 70% of the dwelling, but this is how it goes. Okay, so what you pay for the home in Pacific Palisades, 3.5 million up there, that's a lot, but that's a bargain up there. Okay, that's like what my dad had, okay, on Fisk or something. And those are just, they're under 3,000 square feet. They're built on small lots. They were built a long time ago. And what people do in California is that the building is so regimented in LA County, you can't build anything new. So everybody just fixes up what they have. And they give you a lot of grief about that too. So everything's very, very regimented and regulated. But back to the point about the dollars and cents, because that's what everybody cares about. So when your home burns to the ground, the game is that you're not going to get your mortgage paid off. That is not going to happen. It's not like auto insurance. You're not going to get your mortgage paid off. You're going to get it's indemnification. So it's going to bring you back to where you were before the loss occurred. So sure, you say, well, I want to be brought back to my $3.5 million I'm in debt for, but it doesn't work that way. They say, we'll build you the same house as close as we can, to what you had. And these are old homes up there. The majority, probably in the 90 percentile, are old homes. There's like very little new building going on in Pacific Palisades. So you have all these old homes up there, burnt down. There's nothing but ash. And so the homeowners are, once they get done fighting and figuring all that out, because it is a mess, once they get done with that and they get these adjusters and then they start talking and figuring it out, and these people are in shock and everything else. So once they get these things figured out, they're going to be, they're never going to get back what they lost. I don't know how else to put it, but they're going to say it's going to cost us, for we're not responsible. This is another thing. There's a lot of exclusions in there. And to rebuild the home, they don't have to lay the pipes. They don't have to fix your electric. You see what I mean? They don't have to fix the ground. They don't have to prepare that soil again. They don't have, the homeowner's insurance doesn't cover anything like that. It just, it doesn't cover acts of war. There's all these exclusions in the policy. So they have to be really careful about how they determine this fire started. It can be very, very messy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, was it an act of terrorism? Was it we're never going to find that out. So you can just, there's too much money involved up there, way too much money. And those people have bought all those politicians up there. So let's just get to the bottom line. Nobody's ever going to find out.
It's like the Diddy
Never.
tapes. It's the Diddy. It's like
That's
the
right. And they might have got some of that wiped out too. So
right.
they're never going to find out what started it. And God bless them. And I don't know what they're going to get. But some of the people there, of course, the very wealthy people up there, the celebrities and stuff that had brokers that got them what's called an HO5 policy, that's a totally different ball game. So they do have more of a replacement cost for the dwelling, but most people, those people were struggling just to have a policy up there. So it's going to be nasty. And Judge, if I may ask you one question, back in 2014, there was something passed in California. What was it? Prop one, something, and they were supposed to build reservoirs and that was funded and they didn't build any of them, not a one. So of course there's going to be lots of lawsuits for that too, right?
Yeah, probably. It's a real live mess.
Oh, it's going to
California,
be a nightmare. Thank you so
California,
much.
California's been diverting too many of its resources to special programs and DEI stuff. I know I have a fit with California. They've been attaching my bank accounts for the last 10 years, and I haven't lived there for 12, and I owe them no taxes at all. And they attach funds every damn year. I get the money back after they've kept it for 8, 9, 10 months, and I've spent several $1,000s on attorney fees and accountants fees to get the money back. But they earn interest on my money, and I have to pay for them earning money because they're damn broken. right now I'm battling with them for 2020 taxes that we've already resolved 6 times, and they're coming back again. And like, what the hell is the matter with you? We've resolved this. But they keep going at it because they're broke and they get people's money in. They don't want to pay anything out because they can't afford to, and they're trying to get the interest generated.
I want to go to Welsing, and I'll swing back to you, El Hotep. And thank you, Henrietta, for breaking that whole thing down. It's because and you have all the knowledge when it comes to that, so I appreciate that. Go ahead, Welsing.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing? Hope
Good.
everyone
How are
is
you?
well. Good. So I am in development in real estate out here in Los Angeles, specifically in that area. And I'm currently looking for places for some of my clients, or some clients who have relatives that have lost their homes. I'm currently looking for 15 families. Some of my colleagues have 30 people. And, you know, it's funny because I was there at a restaurant the Saturday. I was in Pacific Village the Saturday before the fires. Um, and the Wednesday before all of that happened, I was at the Real Inn in Malibu. Those are my favorite little areas to go and hang out and have dinner and just walk around. So it's pretty profoundly sad what's going on. There's a there's a couple of things happening in that neighborhood right now. It's going to be very interesting with the Coastal Committee and with the Department of Building and Safety, because I keep telling people, because some of my clients fall under this category, but you have people whose names you are familiar with, and then you have the people whose names you are not familiar with, who wield tremendous political power in the state of California, that live in that neighborhood enclave. That neighborhood enclave of Pacific Palisades is one of the most expensive enclaves in the country. And it's been around for a long time. And it's going to be very interesting how this all pans out, because the footprint that some of these homeowners have lived in will not be the same footprint that they think they're going to get if they decide to rebuild. And there's a lot of money. There's a lot of people that will rebuild. Um, but there are some people, quite a number of people, who have been living in these homes for 50 and 60 years, that are probably in their 80s, and the thought of rebuilding is it's just it's not there for them, at least. Um, I do believe that this is going to turn this blue state red, because the very people whose homes have been destroyed are the very people who are the Democrat gatekeepers. And so far, I think politically, the Democrats are on a they've been on a downward spiral. This is just not a good look for them at all, I'm telling you. And what's left of blue in this state will turn red, because these people are not used to being told no. They're not used to being told they cannot. They're not used to being told they have to wait. Believe me, folks, when I tell you this. I've got clients right now that are asking me to look for rents that are $40,000 and $50,000 a month right now. So it's going to be quite interesting. What Rick Caruso said the other day, I am in 100% agreement, only because I drive around a lot and I know a lot of places that I see it. This was not due to climate change, although climate change is an issue globally, and certainly an issue in California. This was absolute neglect. This was neglect from a local and county perspective. Rick Caruso referenced all of the shrubbery and foliages that have not been tended to for 30 to 40 years. That's the God's honest truth. That's the God's honest truth. I drove through recently. I went to La Kenya to Flint Ridge, and at the base of that, I started driving over the National Angeles Forest. And I can tell you just by driving through there that I saw vast acres of burnt trees from the last fires, which was about, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. So you consider that there's been no remediation of any kind of foliage, no irrigation of any kind. You've got all the shrubbery that has not been pruned, removed, whatever, for 30 to 40 years. There's no lie. All over the place. You've got um uh they've been receiving money to bury power lines, which they should have been doing from a long time ago. It's just a benign neglect not to do it because you're not. You see, out here we have a lot of palm trees, and some of them grow, I mean, over 100 feet tall. They're beautiful, but they require a lot of maintenance. And on any given windy day, if you're driving down places like Sunset Boulevard or Highland, places where there's a lot of palm trees, if you're not careful walking or driving, when those dry limbs or dry palms fall from that distance high above and hits you, it has hurt people, it has dented people's cars. Those things are fire hazards. um and so when you get a wind like what we had last week Monday, where winds were going between 80 to 100 miles an hour, and those palms or twigs or branches hit those power lines, and things start sparking and they catch on fire, that's a major issue. The other social ill that we have that people can say you can blame it on COVID, but it's been about 35 years in the making, and that's our homeless situation. The homeless situation has been in the making for the last 30 to 35 years because the local politicians in Los Angeles have truly been in the back pocket of a lot of developers, and they've eminent domain where they didn't have to. They've overbuilt, and they've torn down properties and rebuilt it that it's become so inaccessible rent wise that you have a phenomenon in Los Angeles, and it's the working homeless. These are the people that they do go to work, but they live in their cars because they cannot afford the rent, but they cannot relinquish their jobs. And so you have that, plus you have homeless that are just wandering the streets and in these mountains, Temescal Canyon, out there in Pacific Palisades. I mean, that is where I'm willing to bet that fire started somewhere around there. You had in Woodland Hills, a homeless guy was caught. He started the fire in Agora Hills. There was a woman that started the fire, I believe, in Bell Canyon. And I don't know about Pacific. I'm not sure about Pacific Palisades and Altadena, but it will fall probably under someone did it nefariously, intentionally, or it was debris that hit a power line. But all of this is leading up to some major, major, major lawsuits. And I, based on my clientele, that rules are not going to apply, that it's not going to apply. They will be able to build the way they want to build. Trust me when I tell you, because these are the power people that live in those neighborhood enclaves of Brentwood, Pacific Palisades, and Malibu, but particularly Pacific Palisades and Brentwood. And they do not take kindly to be told no.
So the rules
And
the rules are not going to apply
I don't
to
think
the
so.
wealthy, but for the regular people, because what people outside of California, right? Everybody else, we don't have the understanding of the majority of those people are regular working people. Those
Yes.
the wealthy people is not the majority, even though we have that perception of Southern California, LA being majority wealthy. That's not the case. A lot of people that got burnt out, elderly, minority, is those, it's more of those than it is wealthy.
I'm willing to bet, Dana, because Altadena is a part of San Gabriel Valley. San Gabriel Valley consists of Altadena, Pasadena, South Pass, San Marino, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, La Crescenta, mainly. There's other ones, Sierra Madre, but I name those cities because the one thing they always have had is a exceptionally strong appreciation for architecturally significant properties, no matter how big or how small. And I am willing to bet, and I've been talking to people, and I'm not saying that I'm an expert on this, but I've been around long enough that they will be okay because there's too many eyes on this and too many, too much at stake to disparage the black community of Alta Vista right now. Additionally, we're on the heels of an awakening with Black people with regards to the redlining and all of the properties that were stolen, things of that nature. It's resonating a lot here, and people are talking about it. And I think I'm almost willing to bet, for political sake, I think they are going to be fine. I don't think that they will be the victims of any nefarious actions against them. I just think that this is just too great of a situation here in California for them to be abused. I really do. And you know, I will tell you.
You know what I think is going to happen, and El Hotep, I'm gonna come to you because we're about to close out. Um, I think that a lot of the people outside of those wealthy, powerful people, everyone else, a lot of them, particularly that particular section. How do you pronounce that? Altadena?
Altadena.
Altadena.
Altadena. Yeah,
Out.
Altadena was an enclave that was allowed, Black people were allowed to rent and own because they weren't allowed to do that in Pasadena and San Marino.
Oh, okay. So it's right
Yeah,
next
yeah.
to
So it's a
Ventura.
historically Black
Right.
neighborhood. But what it also has, Dana, which a lot of people don't seem to realize, it has some of the most unbelievable architecture that have been lost.
Oh,
Like,
that was damaged. Okay, so this is where I was going.
I wish it was damaged. It's lost.
Oh, what do you mean?
I mean, when I tell you one thing that I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Huh?
you. One of the things that pains me is to know that the McNally house is absolutely gone. It's
Oh,
just,
when you
it's gone.
so when y'all say lost, that it's.
Burnt to a crisp.
Oh wow. So
A lot of those Black homeowners, their homes are the traditional mission Spanish style adobe homes. I mean, these things are published. Like you have no idea. That's why I'm saying, with all of the world looking at California and it's a hot mess right now. Yes, you got the powers that be in Pacific Palisades, but you've got this community, and this community is very important. They are not. I'm willing to bet that they are not going to allow that to go by the wayside. They're not.
well, so I was going to say, and just interject this real quick. I think a lot of people are going to get paid to stay away and not rebuild because the FIFA World Cup, the Olympics, anything else, a lot of times people buy you out to not return, and I think that might be the case. However, and somebody else will, two people are, why do y'all do this? Why do y'all request to come up when y'all know I'm about to close out?
Dana, let me tell you something. there's talk that the Olympic Committee may be pulling out of Los Angeles. And if they do, it's probably the smartest thing they could ever do. This city is not ready for prime time before the fires. They weren't. And they're not, definitely. Would you, as a sitting on the Olympic Committee, feel good about, what they saw? Suppose there was a terrorist attack during the Olympics. Do you think they'd be ready?
Great point. And so, but please don't elaborate on it because I want to pin this. Maybe somebody powerful, if we want to talk about, it being a setup, maybe that's part of the setup. So that could happen so that, somebody else could get their bid in to remove the Olympics from coming to LA. I'm just throwing it out there. But Westling, I'm gonna send you and Henrietta a message in your ex DM. So look out for that. And I'm assuming that you El Hotep and who is this? Your worst nightmare. Briefly, you could say something briefly after El Hotep, and then pushing the limits. And then I see Sherelle. But so all you newcomers up here, y'all only gonna have 2 minutes because it's late. Um, but thank you, Wesling and Henrietta, because y'all went into great detail and breaking a lot of stuff down. You want to say something, Judge, before I go to El Hotep?
Well, I was just going to comment about another parallel to something. My memory of Los Angeles dates to 1952, and everything from then on, I remember pretty well. I was in school then, and I will wait till everybody else gets on because I was going to, well, I might throw this out. What you're looking at right now, I've seen worse in the Los Angeles area, but it was 60 years ago this year. And it was known as variously the Watts Uprising, the Watts Riot, and the extent of the damage was about 3 times as bad with what happened in 1965. And what you saw with the flames and the smoke was literally the entirety of Los Angeles at that point. They had to call in a division of the National Guard, 14,000 troops, in order to bring things in order. And it lasted for more than a week. So a lot of property got burnt down. And people really don't understand that, particularly the woke crowd right now that doesn't get what actually led to a lot of the changes in the mid 60s. Now, just think what's happening in LA and multiply it to a lot of the big cities in the United States of America and start contemplating that kind of unrest where what has happened with these fires was going on in most of the big cities. That was a wake up call to the United States to do something about its circumstances. There was an effort made, but unfortunately, what happened is the effort got corrupted and quickly co opted, pimped out, sold out, anything you want to call it, it happened. And between then and now, we have gotten into glorification of dysfunction and the disaster. As I said earlier, let no good disaster go to waste. And that one was not allowed to go to waste when it came to exploitation of circumstances. So just keep that in mind. And when you start talking about reform of social programs, direction of government, just say we've had a forest fire, wildfire, let's say, not forest, but wildfires remind us what happens when somebody starts setting them on purpose and a whole lot of people are setting them, and
Okay.
reflect on what we need to do as a consequence.
All right. So briefly, I'm gonna go to El Hotep, Pushing, and Sherelle. Oh, did you want to say something, Hotep? Because you did have your
Yeah,
hand up.
yeah, yeah. It was something that two previous speakers said. I just kind of wanted to ask a question. I was hoping the previous speaker before the woman before him didn't drop off, but they did. But I asked the judge. I remember when Ray Davis was governor. I'm not sure if it was him, but it was during his term. He wanted to get that high-speed rail system, the train that was going to go from Southern California to Northern California. And I believe where those fires are at, it is that same exact path. I was wondering if that was true, and because I heard some rumors that they did want to build that train system back up. How much of this fire situation had anything to do with it? Do they still want to build that high speed railroad system? And does this have anything to do with that? That was my question.
Well, I don't know. I do not know. It might, but I tell you what, there are some much more convenient ways of accomplishing the exercise of eminent domain to get the properties to develop the high speed train transportation than having arson, because if anybody dies and there are already a couple of people, then you start opening yourself up to the death penalty in California, which is for some people an inconvenience, but there are better ways to do it. But then again, let no disaster go unutilized, and that's been a long term policy. You got a convenient disaster, put it to use.
All right, I want to go to pushing and then show out.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I won't be long here. I won't need any more than 2 minutes. I have a question for Judge Joe Brown, and it's related to Pete Hegseth. So, Judge, hi, Judge. So you in the past have accused Kamala Harris of being, for lack of a better term, a whore. I'm wondering if you have the same criticism or maybe more for a man who cheated on his first wife with a coworker, his second wife, cheated on his second wife with a Fox News executive, had a child with her while married to the second wife, cheated on his third wife, womanizing. I'm wondering if you have anywhere near the same criticism that you've had for Kamala Harris, who allegedly had a relationship with a guy named Willie Brown 30 years ago. She's a happily married woman, a good mother, a good wife, but you've attacked her relentlessly. I'm wondering, where is your same criticism for a guy like a Pete Hegseth, whose own mother called him a woman abuser? Where is your same criticism for Pete Hegseth?
I'm not a
Okay.
sissy.
Pushing
Sissy, go
came in
on,
here with the tea.
get your own thing somewhere. Stop trying
Right,
to
you're a
troll.
coward. You won't answer the
Oh,
question because
shut
you're a
up,
coward.
fool. Stop trying to troll.
Exactly.
Man,
Mine was a
the
Exactly.
hoe.
Why don't you
standards,
answer the
the
question? Answer the
standards,
question.
I don't have a problem with it. Standards for men and women are not the same.
Oh, you are such a
You
bigot.
fuckhead. Shut up and get your ass off with
Yeah,
your
you're a
punk self.
judge.
Kamala's a
Get
hoe.
your
You
fucking
bigot.
punk ass off.
Notice how
We're
he won't answer the
talking men here.
question,
Get
Dana?
your
Wait,
look.
wait.
I don't
Pushing.
criticize him,
First of
and
all,
I
he did
know a
answer the
casting
question.
couch hoe. There's a
Yeah, okay. You
difference.
call her a
Well,
hoe.
she
You're
is.
you're a you're a
We're a
misogynistic pig, is
sissy.
what you
Okay,
are.
you're a sissy, so we know
Where's your
what's up.
criticism for Hegseth?
I'm not
You
having a criticism for Hegseth.
exactly because it's
Why
a double
no?
standard
He's a
for you because
man.
you're an
He
asshole.
can't
That's
have
why.
babies, fool.
He can't have babies. What the
He
hell does
can't
that have to
have
do with cheating on
babies. He
somebody?
can wear rubber
What?
and no consequences.
Boy, you are
He
just a
can deal
nut.
with Saudi Arabia
Pushing.
or
I
he
need
can
you to
deal
be
with
on mute. You
somewhere
asked
else.
you
And
asked
what
the
is it,
judge a
fool?
question. 1 second,
4
Judge.
wives and unlimited concubines to the extent he can afford. That's one major religion in the world. So get over it. And that's got nothing to do with the ability to perform. She's just a casting couch hoe. And the problem with casting couch hoes is once you sleep your way to the top, you still have to be able to perform. And if all you've been doing is sleeping, you don't have the ability to play that prime part once you get it in the movie or the production is a flop. And that fool demonstrated her incompetence
when she was Miss Word Salad Annie on the national and international scale. She was a real live idiot. She was a lazy heifer who, instead of preparing for cases, just hiked up a hemline. And our history doesn't start with Willie Brown. It goes back to when she was at Howard University and she was a frat girl.
And where's your evidence of that?
Oh, I know people that were witnesses.
Huh. Well, guess what? I know people as well. And all
Okay,
I
you
asked
know
her,
these people? I
can I
met her
respond?
daddy. I
Can I
talked to
can I have
her father
can
for
I
2.5
can
hours
okay,
at a
fine.
dinner table sitting
Fair enough.
between me
Can I
and my
respond?
wife.
Dana,
Now,
can I just
okay,
respond for 30 seconds?
go
Please,
ahead
if I
with
may.
your thing. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, sir. Thank you,
Stop
sir.
trying to troll. It ain't
I'm not
working
trolling.
on this site.
Are you done?
We
Can I
ain't
respond now?
blue. Go take your
Are you
blue
gonna
ass back to
are
some
you
other
gonna let me
corrupt little
respond?
place. I might
Okay,
not.
so first,
All right,
I
so
might
Judge, are
knock
we
you
gonna
off.
let her respond,
Go
Judge?
ahead.
thank
Go
you.
ahead.
First of all, I didn't vote for Barack Obama. I did not vote for Hillary Clinton. I've been a registered independent my whole life. Number two,
Go ahead.
the idea that you're okay with calling a woman a hoe because allegedly she slept with Willie Brown 30 years ago. By the way,
I
she's a
didn't
happily
say
married
just
woman.
Willie Brown, did I?
Can I finish, sir, without you
Well, then
interrupting for
quote
10
my ass
seconds?
right, fool.
Okay,
Don't sit
first of
there
all,
and
I'm
go
not a
spread
fool.
misinformation. That's
Dana,
your guy's side,
Dana,
right?
Dana, can I just speak for 30 seconds and then I'll leave
Maybe
everybody
I'll
alone?
let you.
Okay.
Maybe I
Oh,
won't,
well,
but go ahead.
thank you. That's so nice of you. So, first of all, Pete Hegseth, okay, Pete Hegseth has cheated on every woman he's ever had in his life. But you think it's a double standard. So if a man does it, you're totally okay with it. But if allegedly 30 years ago a woman does it, you can call her a hoe. But yet you have no criticism for Pete Hegseth. You have no criticism for
Oh
a man
man,
who's,
come
I'm
on,
not finished
man the
yet. You
fuck
have
up.
no criticism for a
Man
man
the
like Donald
fuck
Trump.
up. What's wrong
Yeah,
with
that's
you?
all you
You
do is
sound
scream
like some
expletives. You can't
sissy
have a
ass.
conversation
What's
with
the
you.
matter with you, sissy? Where do you get off code, fool?
Where do I get off what? You
You
can't even
get
speak
off
English.
code, fool.
Where did I get off code fool? Can you speak like you have an IQ over 20 and can we
I
have a
got
conversation?
No, he has
190
a very
goddamn
high
plus
IQ.
IQ,
We're not
motherfucker.
good.
So you want to compare it? I sometimes talk like I grew up where I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, which wasn't even
You
called
talk like an ignorant bigot is the way you
Oh,
talk.
you're a fuckhead. You want to match
Yeah,
IQs?
there
I
you go
got a
So
again,
listen,
using
goddamn
the F
I
word.
doctorate
have a
degree.
question
What
for
the hell have
pushing.
you got,
I
fool?
have a question for pushing.
I'll tell you
Pushing.
what I
What
got,
the
an
fuck have
education.
you got?
An
You are a
education and I respect
pussy
women.
ass motherfucker. Don't even come
Really?
up in here with that
Then
shit.
why did you dodge my show? Why
I'm
did you
not.
dodge
What
my
is your
radio show
show?
then?
Why the fuck
Yeah,
should I get
exactly.
on and get
You
you
know
radio,
exactly.
asshole? Who
I
the fuck are
invited you
you?
on my show and you're a
Who
coward. You
invited you
won't come
on
on because
Who
you're
where?
a
the fuck
coward.
are you?
Sure. So I will explain.
Who the fuck are
So
you?
why don't you shut up and let me
No,
explain
punk
and
That
start
ass
that, that
listening?
sounds like
motherfucker. This
Ryan
is my
Shapiro.
We're
goddamn
not gonna come up here
exhibition.
and tell her
You
shut
fuck
up. Like,
yourself. Go
This guy
fuck
acts like
your
he's a
wait,
faggot
pimp or
ass self.
something.
hold on for a
Go
second,
take your
pushing.
sissy ass self someplace.
Hold on for a second, because okay,
Now
who
you got
Dana, can I
your
talk to
I
you,
know.
goddamn
Dana?
Okay,
nerve
so
coming up in
Judge,
here
I'm
trying to
trying to
talk
figure
shit.
out. I think he's upset
Dana,
because he wanted to come on.
Don't
He
call
wanted to
Dana.
come.
You talk to Judge Joe, asshole. You want to get on here? Then go for it. And I don't even know who the fuck you are. What goddamn little meek ass show do you have? And who are you fronting off for? You trying to be feminist bitch of the year?
But Kamala
so
lost
I have
the
200
election.
to answer
And
your
the bitch
question.
lost the election.
I have 200,000 listeners a
I don't
day
give a
with my
fuck.
little show.
I got
You
shit where I
misogynist,
had. I look,
racist pig.
motherfucker. I was when before I
How many
retired
women have you
after
hit in your life?
15 years.
How
I
many
was the
women have you
number
hit in your
one and
life?
number two syndicated show in the whole goddamn
Yeah,
country.
exactly. What are you doing
I
now,
had
you washed up
35, 40
bigot?
million people a week watching me. So
Yeah,
what the
yeah,
hell
yeah.
do I
Where's your
care
show now?
about you
Where's
got
your show now?
100,000
Where's your
followers?
Where's your show now, you washed up bigoted
I've
fool, you old man?
retired, asshole. I was 68 years old. I was a multimillionaire. Now fuck you.
All right, so we're not
Now,
gonna
where in the hell are you
hurl out.
going? You got 100,000 followers? Look on my goddamn site. I got more than you, motherfucker. So shut up, punk.
I'm muted. I just put everybody on mute because what we're not gonna do is You're not going to say, oh, he's a woman beater. We're not doing that. We're not throwing false accusations. I'm talking to pushing. All that, the big. First of all, the judge you don't get under his skin that way. But the question I wanted to ask pushing, she lost the election. And then you're going back 6 months because you're upset that the
Sure, I'll
judge,
answer that.
you upset
I'll
that the
answer
judge,
that.
wait, you upset that the judge called her a hoe, but
Sure.
he wasn't the only one that called her that.
Sure. So let me be clear, and that's a good question, Dana. I'll respond to you. First of all, I don't care if Kamala Harris lost 100 elections. It is inexcusable for anybody to use that kind of language to a woman. I
Fuck
understand she
you.
lost the election.
Fuck
Here he goes again.
you.
Here he goes
Punk.
again, swearing at me.
Fuck you,
Dana, are you
punk.
okay with him using
Fuck
that
you,
language towards
punk.
women?
Don't
Are you
ask
okay with that?
Dana. Don't ask Dana. She and I
Yeah,
partner
exactly.
this. What
What
the hell
woman
you
would be
do
with
to?
you?
You got to
What,
you
you
appeal to
bigoted,
the woman
Well,
to
first
misogynist?
of all,
protect your
it's a
dumb
lot of
ass.
women that
Come
want to
on,
be with
punk.
them. So a lot
Appeal
of
to
women
the
that want to
woman
be
to
with them.
protect you. Deal up man to man, fool.
Let's deal up man to man, you old piece of garbage.
Oh, fuck you. When's the
Yeah,
last time
exactly.
your
That's a
ass
great
got
comeback.
laid, or do you
Just
like
keep
to
saying,
lay with the
how
boys?
many
Still
women
talking
Come
are in
about
your
on,
life?
boy
women.
lover.
How many women are in your life, you old misogynist, bigoted
Oh,
fool?
I fuck it. Yeah, I'm a misogynist.
Yeah,
Now fuck
exactly.
you.
How many women, how many exes do you have, you old misogynist fool, you?
Okay, so
I'm no fool, and
pushing.
Kamala
I
Harris
admit I'm
is
a
10 times.
misogynist,
All right,
and
so
I'm
pushing.
old, but I still have lady friends. So fuck you too. So what have you got?
All right, I
Or
think
do you like boys? Come on, tell us. You like boys, don't you? Because you were upset. And you one of them that if you was young enough, you probably go put on a sports bra and go compete against the girls, wouldn't you?
I'll put everybody on mute. Judge, you know you can mute and unmute.
I know it. I want him to talk.
Oh, you want? Okay, let me unmute.
Let his ass talk. Come on, punk. Come on
Thank
back
you. Yeah,
on. Come
I'll
on,
tell
punk.
you what
Come
I'm
on back
attracted
on.
to.
Come on. Come on.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to old, shriveled old men who used to be
Oh,
judges and
fuck
now are
you.
washed up,
I
misogynist
retired
fools.
at
You're such a
68
good-looking
years
man,
old, you
sir. The
stupid
way you
shit. I've
talk
been
about
doing
women
this
and
for
the
50 years.
homophobic
Fuck
comments you
off,
make, what a
fool.
great man
You
you are.
haven't done a goddamn thing in your little sorry ass
I
life.
respect women. I respect women, you
Oh, I
old
do
bigot.
too. My motto
Oh
is
yeah, you really
protecting
sound like you
womanhood
do.
and promoting
Yeah,
manhood, you
you
goddamn
really,
asshole.
in
How
this
many of them have
5 minutes,
you defended?
I'll
How
answer you. In
many of them
five
have you
minutes,
defended, little punk?
I'll answer
Or
you.
would you put a
Well, before
dress
you
on to
wait
go
one
sneak
second, Judge.
onto a lifeboat on the
So
Titanic,
pushing.
ass?
Um,
Come on, boy.
so just a little. I put everybody on mute for a second
Come
before the
on,
judge
boy.
or before you answer anything pushing. FYI, yes, you have a radio show, and I think you're upset because the judge never came on your show. Whatever. But I'm still trying to figure out why are you upset with the judge when you're not upset or calling out other people who have called her a derogatory name. Now there are a couple people in the comments saying why I'm not defending the judge. First of all, the judge doesn't need me to defend him. And second of all, the judge can handle himself very well, which he is. And third of all, pushing all of this with this X space is copyright. So, if you're just trying to spark up a good satire conversation to possibly air it on your radio station or whatever the hell, this is copyright and I do not allow people to privately use my copyright content. Thank you.
And I will sue your ass if you do.
Yeah. Okay. So first
Now,
of all, to
agree.
answer your
All
question,
right.
Dana,
Did
can
you
I
suck on
answer
your
your
mama's
question?
tits until you were
Is
5
he going to
years
stop
old? Is
talking?
that
Can I
what's happening?
answer your
No, I'm
question?
not talking. I'm not
Yeah,
start
he doesn't
talking.
stop.
You a
He doesn't
goddamn
stop.
troll, fool. So get over
Yeah,
it.
you're handling yourself
Get
very well.
over
Okay,
it.
so
Yeah,
Dana,
I
I'll answer
am.
your
I'm
question if the
amusing
judge will stop
myself.
talking.
You a
I'll
punk.
answer your
No,
question.
fuck you. I don't feel like it. What you gonna do
You're
about it?
handling yourself very
What
well,
you gonna
Judge.
do
F
about it?
you. Yes,
Yeah,
that's a
I
great way of
am.
handling it.
So you brought your troll ass up in here, punk.
Yeah. You brought
Punk,
your
you brought
shriveled
your
old
troll
ass in
ass
here.
up in here. And all
Yeah,
you
you
can do is call
misogynist
me an
pig.
old
Well,
misogynist.
hold
Okay,
So
on one
I
I'm
admit
not.
it.
second. Hold on.
I admit to being
Pushing. This
misogynistic.
is
What about it,
yeah,
punk? I'm a man. I ain't
pushing.
no sissy running around here trying to
He
see
admits
if
to be
I
a
can put on a
misogynist
sports
pig.
bra.
Yes, he
That's
admits it.
Oh,
Yes, because
shut up,
real men
fool.
yeah.
admit who they
Congratulations.
are.
That's
Get some
very nice.
variety in what you're doing.
Real men admit.
Oh,
So Dana, can I answer your
let's
question?
Pushing.
go
Wait
for it.
one
Let's
second,
run the
Judge.
dozens, fool.
1 second, Judge. Pushing. This is the judge space. I'm just the producer. So you saying he bringing his old shriveled ass up in here? It's his space. It's his space.
Yeah, fuckhead.
She's the producer and the director, fuckhead. So you appealing to her. Look at your punk ass. You want to defend yourself, so you calling on a woman to defend your punk ass. Look at you. See, you one of these blue fucks who has made the world as screwed up as it is because you don't know what masculinity is about. You running up here talking about, he's a male hoe. Oh, come on, fool.
All right. Should we give him the last word? Because I do need to move on to
No, cut
Sherelle.
his ass off. I want him frustrated. And then I want to generate a little bit of friction. Come on, I feel like taking something on. Bring his ass on. Let him go to his radio show. We need a little PR from him. Come on, talk about us on your punk ass show.
You want him to speak now?
No, fuck him. Cut him off. He said all he's got.
Oh, so you want me to? Okay, so you don't want to hear from him anymore.
I don't want to hear from his punk ass anymore. He's a troll.
You coward.
Oh,
Coward.
coward,
Bigot
come say
coward.
it to my face, punk. You've
Come on to the
already
radio
had it.
show.
All you
Come to
had
my
to do,
radio show, coward.
all you've said is some
You
punk shit, sissy, sissy boy.
Yeah. If you want him to come on your radio show and push back against what he said, you shouldn't have been. You should have came up differently and just asked and be like, listen, I wanna talk to you, but I want to push back on some of the things with Kamala, whatever. You should have handled it just more professionally. He would have came on. He likes adversary
Look, I
stuff.
can't help it, boy, because your mama let you suck on her tits till you were 5. And I can't help it because she wiped your ass and gave you enemas until you were 10. I can't help that. I can't help it because you hate woman because you ain't ever been laid. What are you, the 35-year-old virgin? How long before you moved your ass out your mama's house? You were 32, 33? How about that? Oh man, come on. You don't have to come on and troll. You can do better than that.
All right, so we have Sherelle and Mike. So I'm gonna go to Sherelle.
Hi, good evening or good afternoon or morning, wherever you guys are at. And hello to the judge and Dana. How are you guys doing today? Looks like you got a little bit of chaos on there. But I was listening to what you guys were talking about, and there's my heart goes out to the disheartening situation there in LA. Much prayers and condolences to the folks there. On my end, I am taking a look and seeing that there are different resources. So if you guys know people in need, there's many small businesses that have opened up their doors, issuing out to men, women, and families, different clothing and things of that nature. I did mention and kind of sent you guys like a little small text of what I was getting. I know Vanessa Bryant, she just recently put together her baby to baby program. So she's putting together care packages and sending them out. There's a couple models that came together and are doing care packages as well. I mentioned Jack in the Box and Sizzlers the other day, and those are places where you can get free meals and things of that nature. And then there's a lot of folks who've come together to buy out blocks of hotel rooms for people to stay in so folks can get the resources that they need. I also wanted to address another thing that I thought was interesting that she brought up was the Olympics that comes in 2028. And, the turnaround on 150,000 houses that have been impacted, I'm not sure if that's still the number, have to check in on that. But the amount of the houses that have been impacted by this situation is disheartening that, to hear from the woman that mentioned that there was a predominantly Black community that was terribly displaced as well, but in addition to as well the other communities that have been harmed. I think that's just quite terrible. And then them obviously they do need resources in order to rebuild their homes, and there has to be a payout for those folks that have been impacted, regardless if they're insured or not. They need to be able to have some kind of financial support in figuring out what their next steps are. And I think that that's going to be a crucial decision there. The other thing I think is important to mention, the cost of living out there is incredibly important to address as well, right? So this is LA. This is not, the middle of the Midwest or anything where, you have a way to get back on your feet easy. That's a ton of money that has to come out. And the property values of those areas are extremely higher than other places across the United States. So that is going to be a factor as far as what happens and what kind of decisions are being made. But I think also one important thing I think that she was talking about is looking towards the future and what that's going to look like for all of the different contracts for the Olympics. And that might not be quite the time for them to think about that. I think they should just be quite focused on the people who have been harmed and displaced and getting them stable and secure first before reaching to those other contracts and things. But I also think that looking at the scope of the turnaround on building housing, it usually takes between a little over a year or so. And with the housing regulations that are going on, it takes a while for the houses to be built. I mean, there was already a problem with housing in the first place, and that's why there was displacement of unhoused folks in the area, right? So and not to mention the mental health and substance abuse individuals that were displaced, et cetera. You got different areas that had impoverished, marginalized, and underserved communities that were already dealing with some kind of hardship there. So you've got all these different folks that are now going to have to make some decisions, and I know that some are going to probably move to other locations temporarily, or stay with family members, or stay with friends, or what have you, but they do need to be compensated regardless. And I think that that's going to be very, very important and key. Yeah, and to think about the Olympics right now, I think you know you got to get those folks secure first, and not too much focus on that. But when the time does come, I think that they should not. I think that they should keep those contracts and still do business with the Olympics and the head of the committee and things of that nature, even if they need to shift it, one city over or something like that to San Diego or something like that. Then they need to do that. But that would bring in a source of income for a lot of people in that economy, and that might boost up or help return some of the hardship economically that they may be facing, especially if the businesses have to rebuild in that area. Well, bringing in that will actually help benefit them in recovery, right? So you don't want to turn away business, because business is business, and that brings in helpful resources as well, right? So if companies and businesses and influx of tourism, that's a huge event, and that would bring in and stimulate the economy in a way that could help and be beneficial. But you do have to get people on the ground and working cohesively to recover that area. This is an on the ground effort that has to be addressed, and just like other places that are enduring hardships and cause displacement, there needs to be forms of stimulation and economic support in regards to those areas that have been impacted. So I think that's where I stand on this, and the opinions on that. Being someone that
I need you to land the plane, Sherelle.
being someone that has been an interest in congressional discussions, I think that it's important to look at this in that way, and ensuring that the economy is stimulated with support, and that families have the income that they need to support themselves. So that's where I'm at with this.
Thank you so
Ms.
much.
Jackson, let me ask you a question. Considering the negligent aspects of what's been going on with it, do you think that if there is a question that arises, say with the City Council of Los Angeles, where there's a choice between spending to give assistance to the fire survivors or for the Olympic program, they should slant it one way or the other?
Let me have you re-ask that question and make
In
sure
other
that I'm
words,
understanding.
Yeah, because I'm lost with that question, because I
okay,
need to
well,
move on to a couple
let me
other speakers
let me
to close
clarify.
out the space. Come
Let
on.
me clarify it. It's a simple question. It's just this: Los Angeles, the administration of the city, is to an extent responsible for some of the circumstances surrounding the fires and the impact the fires have had on the community. I think, considering the shortage of funds that are involved, there's going to be something somewhere where they're going to be given a choice. Should we spend the money we do have available on making the Olympics a first class thing,
Or should we now say, okay, we're going to have to make some sacrifices and spend the money on getting people straight after this fire? See, I can see the city council. I grew up
All
there.
right, can we wait? I really
So,
want. Can we table that because it's getting late and there's two other people that I have to get to.
Well, I mean, it was just a quick answer.
It was a question. It's a yes or no question. Just say yes or no, Sherelle.
okay, so really quickly, I would just say that the administration is going to have to make those decisions, and I think that the federal is going to have to step in to allocate those funds.
That's a
Right.
good word. That's a good response.
All right.
Thank you, Miss
So
Jackson.
I'm gonna go to Mike, and then I'm gonna go back to Wesley, and I have a question for pushing. But go ahead, Mike.
Thank you so much, Dana, for having me. Judge, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. I'll make this as quick as possible. I've recently became a bi-coastal resident, being a Florida politician, obviously, and then moving in Calabasas, just outside of LA. One thing that I think that's really important for this entire region is that we have to reimagine city government from the top all the way down. One of the things that I'm noticing, even before these wildfires break out, when people are trying to do projects and add on to their homes or do any type of remodeling or anything in this region, the permitting process, all the bureaucracy that one has to go through to live in this region is a bit egregious. And I say this, I am officially a Democrat, but the policies of this region, if we are to thrive and to rebuild and build it back better, the mindset has to change a little bit. I thought it was a myth when I heard about the outdoor toilet that was trying to be donated up north, and by the time the project was due to be completed, the red tape to get that free toilet installed for the people outside would have been the permitting process would have been more expensive than the actual construction and build. Secondly, I know I'm really short on time, so I'll end this really quickly. From a law enforcement perspective, I've heard so much about people looting and taking advantage of people in their time of crisis. I know in this region, talking to a couple of different prosecutors, the mindset here is more of a compassionate release mindset. If we want to continue to lose elections, you can keep doing that. If you want to continue to keep making people feel less safe, we can continue to do that. But this is not a time for catching and release. If you are caught looting or if you're caught in an area where you are not supposed to be, you should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I'll land my plane there because we're very short on time.
Appreciate that.
Well, thank you. That was a good set of remarks.
Um, I think every week going forward, we have to include the California wildfire into the conversation because this is definitely going to be ongoing. I want to go to Wellsing. Okay.
No, I just wanted to answer the gentleman's question with regards to Governor Gray Davis. He was recalled, and because we're short on time, he was recalled due to the state's, I guess, dissatisfaction and confidence that this gentleman could manage the state's finances, and there was, an energy crisis that was taking place where the state was facing rolling blackouts and things. He just overall he mismanaged a lot, and people recalled him. The other thing I wanted to say is this gentleman that just spoke. I think I think that there should be a reconsideration on how city council is elected. I don't think they should be elected. I think they should be appointed by the mayor. And once the mayor's tenure has expired, that they expire as well, because what I've seen in Los Angeles and what I've seen in New York, it is in Los Angeles, the city council has become um, very Hispanic and very queer, and nothing gets done. And it's a bad reflection on our city and state. We're too subsidized, and it's a poorly run city. So and I could get into a whole lot with regards to permits and stuff because this is my life. but I won't. That's for another time because it is a money grab. It's always a money grab because they're always subsidizing for everybody else. $2.6 billion was spent last year on healthcare for illegals. I land with that.
May I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
I understand what you're saying about letting the mayor appoint the people who are on the city council, but wouldn't that cut the citizens off in those districts from having a say? And would you want somebody like Bass to be making the appointments? Just curious.
Well, I didn't vote for her. I voted for Rick Caruso. And that would go with the territory. The thing is that yes, you would be cutting off the people to vote. These are the people that voted for Gascon. When Gascon had a reputation already established from destroying San Francisco, they voted for him to be district attorney of Los Angeles, and it was an absolute shit show. And I will give you one example. Um, During his tenure, if somebody, say you're an employee at Rite Aid, for example, and you saw someone come in and steal something, you're not allowed to go after that person and stop them. If you do, you would get fired and the store would get fined $18,000. That's not a lie. He had
Oh,
people,
go
he had,
ahead.
yeah, he had people, you had people who were committing crimes and released the same day. We had an incident where that happened, and a young man was released the same day, and on the same day, he stabbed and killed a store owner. So what I'm saying to you is that I would feel better to have the mayor appoint these people as opposed to what the voters are voting for, because what they're voting for is a large part of why Los Angeles is an expensive toilet. Thank you.
Well said.
Uh,
In the event of an emergency in the causes of looting and things of that nature, I think in order to combat that, and I think we've because incidents and different events happen, and we've got to start being more proactive in prevention methods and kind of getting ahead of this. And I think that means working with private companies in order to create a voucher system that rations out a small amount to each individual that's impacted by a disaster. So that way they have some sort of emergency fund that they can tap in right away. And that way they go into the stores and they can get what they need in order to survive for the amount of time that they need. I think that that would also, reduce the amount of folks that are impacted and decide to make these serious decisions to commit such crimes. So we have to start thinking like that so that we're not just continuously putting people in situations. And I don't mean to say it like that, but that people are in these situations and they end up, constantly having to figure out the ways to make it. So let's try to solve problems and not consistently have conversations where people are doing these such a things. Not to say that everyone's doing that, but to also think about solutions in order to reduce that from happening in the first place.
Judge,
okay.
I wanted to just say
Mhm.
one thing to you. I want to say that, this is a very unpopular, but I don't care. I'm a New Yorker. I was born in New York, and I've seen New York in its bad state and good state. And I will tell you this: Los Angeles definitely needs a Mayor Giuliani when he was in his right mind. You need the kind of mayor that is not interested in popularity and playing into the majority of this, that, and the other. You need someone that understands business and brings business back. You need somebody that understands the brain drain and bring them back. And you need somebody that is going to understand that in order to keep tourism, okay, that's your largest revenue source, that you're going to have to make it safe for people. You're going to have to make it nice for people. And you're going to have to make it so that it's all year round and not just certain times of the year. You need someone that does not give a damn who or he or she offends. You're just going to get the job done. And that's what we have not had in the last 30 years. And I land with that.
Well, I would commend you on that. I agree with you.
I think of Mayor Tom Bradley. I helped him out
Absolutely.
3 times. The first 2 times he ran for mayor, he was unsuccessful. He won on the third. He was a strong man. He ran the town with an iron hand. He was a former captain on LAPD, and he knew what he was doing. And he was fair, impartial, neutral, and detached with this, dedicated to the proposition that the people needed good service and good government. And that's more than I can say for a whole lot of people that have held the mayor's office in the last 50 years since, or
Absolutely agree
40
with you.
years.
He was one of the finest mayors ever in the country, let alone Los Angeles. And I land with that. Thank you.
And I'll say one other real quick thing. He was the cop on the beat where I grew up. And he always had these meetings along with his partner, with all of the men in the community, to discuss what was going on and what well, I was a kid, but he encouraged the kids to come so they could listen to what their fathers were doing. He encouraged everybody to take a personal hand in keeping the community clean and orderly.
Okay. This is a great space. And I do have one question for pushing, but I want to make this statement. This is a great space. Um, uh, Very enlightened, insightful. And so my question to you pushing is, did you intentionally wait towards the end? Because I was supposed to end this at midnight, because that's what I said when I first got on, and a couple of times. So did you intentionally wait towards the end so you could pop up and make your grand interests, right, with your comment for, or question comment for the judge? Was it entertaining? Yeah, it was filled with tea, but at the same time, the timing is very suspect. And then on top of that, a part of me felt like, okay, you coming in here to say something about something that ended months ago. Your person did not win. If your person did win, I will look at you like, okay, um, you getting stuff off your chest. But she lost miserably, and he
Yeah,
wasn't
can
going.
I answer that?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a chance. Let me finish.
Okay.
She lost miserably, and the thing is, the comments that you're saying the judge made, he was not the only one. A lot of people, men, women, were making the same comments about her. So I say all that to say, you came up late. Was that one, strategically, why you came up towards the end? And two, how did you sit up here and let a 78-year-old man ether your ass on social media?
Okay, how much time do I have to answer? 10 seconds, 30 seconds? What are the rules?
30 seconds.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, I don't know who you are. I saw the space popped up. I went right in there. Number two, it's easy to say somebody won an argument when you mute them 90% of the time. Number three, my question had nothing to do with her losing or winning an election. What it did have to do with is how you speak about women in general terms. Whether she won or lost is irrelevant to me. You didn't even ask me who I voted for. The bottom line here is that when you talk about women that way, I don't think that's a good thing for society. And it had nothing to do with her winning or losing. And by the way, when you said she lost miserably, this was the closest election we've had in 60 years since John F. Kennedy. So she didn't lose miserably. She did lose. You're right. Donald Trump won fair and square, but she conceded. She handled it with class. She has a nice family. Whether you agree or disagree with her policies is one thing. That's fair conversation. But for you to say that you're okay with, as a woman, I'm talking to you now, to call her a whore. And by the way, everybody else that called her that is also wrong. Just because a lot of people say something doesn't make it better. They're all wrong. Okay. Now, if you think she's a whore, you're entitled to your opinion. But just because other people say the same thing, there's a lot of racist people in society too. So because there's not a few, there's a lot of racist people. Does that make it any better? No, it doesn't. Now listen,
So no,
those are my
wait.
opinions.
That was actually 30 seconds, but I want to ask you this question. You said she handled it with class. Why would you say that when that's a lie? Because the night of the election, and it wasn't close, and it wasn't the closest election in 60 years, so you're wrong there. And I don't think you voted for Trump because you sound too much like a Democrat, a leftist Democrat. However, you said she handled it with class. She did not, because she stood up. And I ain't talking about just black students, but she stood up young people, the younger generation that went out there, traveled afar to watch her make, whether it was a victory speech or a concession at the historical HBCU of Howard, her alma mater. And whether it was there or anywhere else, you make the concession. You don't just sit up here and bounce and say, I see y'all tomorrow. She didn't even say anything. Somebody else had to come out and say, oh, she's not coming out tonight. And we'll keep you posted. And then it was a message or an email, social media blast that came out a couple hours later saying that, okay, she's going to make her concession speech or speak to the crowd the next day. No, that's not handling it with class. And then on top of that, she didn't even want to show JD Vance and his family, give them a tour of the whatever where the VIP stays at. I forgot what you call that. So she didn't handle shit
The
with
observatory.
So she didn't handle shit with class. So I get what you're saying, that we should not go around calling people whore if we don't, know if it's true or not, blah, blah, blah. But this is America. You have freedom of speech, freedom of press. And I call people a whore. And the fact is that, take the gender, her being a woman, out of it. She is a politician. So if you are a politician running for office, you don't get special privileges because you have a vagina or a penis. You got to take what is thrown at you, because that's politics. It's a dirty game. But please don't come up in here with some bullshit talking about something she handled it with class and she
Kurt, let
did
me
not.
respond to that. Sure. So here's what my definition is of handling it class. You could tell me if you disagree. Conceding an election, calling the president-elect saying congratulations, something Donald Trump never did. There wasn't a
Did
Democrat
she
insurrection.
concede? No.
Yes, she did.
Not
She
that
called
night.
him the next day.
No.
She called him
Who
the next.
the fuck concedes the next day? And that's what I'm talking about, pushing. See, don't come up here with some bullshit. You can't sit up here and finesse me. You concede that night. Hillary Clinton. Oh, honey, she thought she was going to break that motherfucking ceiling on the west side. And she did not. But she took her ass out there and conceded, and she spoke to the people. That bitch didn't do it. Or that hoe. She didn't do it. And what made it worse, though, and it wasn't no fucking ballroom filled with a whole bunch of adults. You was on a college campus where you have young people, which is true. More young people came out and voted this term than any other time in let's say the last 40 years. And you shitted on them because they came out for your punk ass, your hoe ass. And you couldn't walk your ass out there on Howard. That would have been the fucking speech of her life. She missed a great opportunity. So she ain't handle shit with fucking class. Matter of fact, I'm not going to unmute you right now. Because what you not going to do is come up in here and try to cape for that motherfucker. Because she is a piece of shit. Matter of fact, all the politicians up in Congress are pieces of shit. Let's make no mistake about it. You cannot trust a motherfucking politician. Miss me with that bullshit. She handled something with fucking class. And that shit, this fucking election was not close. He got 300 something electors. Over 300.
324.
Yeah. First of all, Trump, the 2020 was close. And them motherfuckers cheated.
Let me say something. One of my uncles got lynched, and I sat next to her father for 2.5 hours, and I talked to him. He specifically told my then wife that he had absolutely no black ancestors. All of his ancestors were either from India and Hindu, or they were Irish. Her mother was Hindu. So how does she become black? Except she's a damn liar. And thinking about my lynched uncle and another uncle that was in the 10th Cavalry, joined up in 1881, the Buffalo Soldiers, and then he wound up serving in World War I, did a total of 38 years in the United States Army. On the other side of things, I resent some goddamn creep
who comes up in here and is technically just a fresh immigrant into the damn country and trying to front off about being something she isn't. Now, the final word on this, the winner of the election says this about the subject we've been talking about, quoting from Donald Trump and what he posted on X. The actual irony: a homeowner consents to pay property taxes that will go to the fire department. The funds are diverted from the fire department to illegal immigrants because LA is a sanctuary city. An illegal immigrant comes and sets fire to your house, and the fire department doesn't have the resources to put it out because they've been spending on social programs. The homeowner paid for their own destruction. On top of that, the government is so inept that the insurance companies won't insure houses there anymore, so the homeowner is left with nothing. That's the one that won. This is what the one who lost had to say. This is a transcription. Quote, it is critically important that to the extent you can find anything that gives you an ability to be patient in this extremely dangerous and unprecedented crisis, that you do. Now, that's what she said. What the hell does that mean? That's bullshit. And that's why she's a hoe. She runs her mouth off to try and give an appearance, and she has absolutely nothing to say. Now, that's the loser, and you heard from the winner. And that would be the conclusion to what we have here in front of us this evening, because that's what we've been talking about. Now, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Before you I hand it over to you, Judge, to get the last word. And I will say this, pushing. I do give people the last word, the speakers, to say what they have to say, but I'm not going to get that to you tonight because I don't care what you say. You intentionally called yourself to come up towards the end and to make your grand stand or whatever, to say your little call yourself trying to get on a judge, but you got handed your ass to you by a 78-year-old man, and you made me go over 50 minutes of the time I wanted to end. So I'm not going to give you the last word. And y'all leftist Democrats, y'all need to stop fucking lying.
And by the way, come up with something else for a derogatory term besides misogynist.
Yeah, honey,
Or
oh yes,
chauvinistic.
and just real quick, he don't care. He said it. Yes, I'm misogynistic. Yes, why do you say that as if you are insulting him?
I freely admit I'm misogynistic. I'm a chauvinist.
He says he's a sexist all the time.
Yeah. And I do protect women, and I have done that. I put it on the line. And my motto is protecting womanhood and promoting manhood, protecting womanhood and childhood and promoting manhood. Dedicated my life to that, and I got a whole bunch of women all across spectrums, black, white, brown, red, yellow, who tell me, do you remember how you helped me out when somebody was trying to rape me and you snatched his ass because you parked your car in the middle of the street, didn't even know me? Oh, I did that. Or do you remember when you did this? Do you remember when you did that? I got locked up recently for 5 days in jail because I represented a 55-year-old woman who was getting persecuted for nothing by a kangaroo juvenile court, and they were trying to railroad her with some illegal proceedings, and in the consequence violate some of my own orders that were still in effect. But I went to jail for 5 days to protect that woman. So somebody tell me what's going to happen when you're 70 years, 65, 69 years old, and you say, I'll go to jail for 5 days to keep a woman from getting done wrong, and you wind up beating her case. You decided to come out of retirement to say, I'll take it free of charge, won't even charge you, ma'am. Now, you got somebody with a long history of trying to do right. So you come on here, and the strongest thing you can come up with is, I'm a misogynist because I say that there are different standards, because men have certain things
that if they violate, something's wrong with them. You call me a coward, and your punk ass wouldn't dare say that to my face, and I'm almost 78. Now, a coward is a damn coward, and I've never shown cowardice in my entire life, even as a damn child. So that's more than a lot of people can say. Now, bottom line is women don't need to be hoes and men don't need to be cowards. So there are standards that change. If a woman turns around and runs from a confrontation where things were otherwise equal, other than the fact that she is physically not equal to the man that might be confronting her, that's not cowardice. But if a man turns around and runs, it's cowardice. If a woman decides she's going to sleep her way to the top, that's being a hoe. If you do it for advantage or money, you a hoe. If you do it for fun, you just promiscuous. That's your business. I make a distinction. There are nuances. And yes, I'm a chauvinist because vive la différence. There are differences between men and women.
So
women are precious. They are a resource. Men are expendable.
So I would like to say thank you to all the speakers that came up here tonight. Very insightful, enlightened, and great conversation. Everybody that's listening in this space, thank you for coming through. Please repost it. Well, did I record it? Oh shit, I didn't mean to record it.
I'd
Well, I
second
will.
that. I thought it was a very erudite conversation this evening. People were talking very earnest,
Yeah.
and I heard some profound points and some interesting perspectives. And it shows something that is not just confined to California. It is a problem with the nation because the attitudes that led to compounding the disaster in Los Angeles are also in place in a lot of other locations in the United States. And we need to vigilantly seek them out and change them so these circumstances no longer are firmly in place to the danger of our society and the people that live here.
And I want to say thank to everybody that's watching on YouTube as well. And you could listen to this space on YouTube because I didn't mean to record it, so I probably will be deleting this space. I don't like to record spaces anymore on X because I stream it live on YouTube. But either way, I appreciate everybody tuning in. And Tuesdays, this is Judge Joe Brown's space. I just help facilitate it, and he does it every Tuesday evening. I'm gonna try to see if we can do it maybe a little bit early because it's way past my bedtime right now. But yeah, so close us out, Judge.
Yeah, anyway, hey, keep on keeping on, be strong, and just learn the lessons so you can live life to the fullest and do what you do, and we'll get it together. All right?
Good to see you, Judge. Bye.
All right.